Chapter 776. Practical as the sumptuous and expensive dishes were served on the table, they were indeed delicious, but not to the extent that the entire Xiao family abandoned their manners and devoured the food without restraint. Contrarily, Miss Fong had never been an arrogant individual, and she had instilled good values in her children. Prior to their visit to the province, Miss Fong had anticipated their trip to the Yuezheng family, and had asked Xiao Xian to educate the family on proper etiquette in an affluent household. They were determined to learn and avoid any embarrassing situations. Although Xiao Xian's knowledge was limited, having attended numerous banquets with the first madam, she had acquired some understanding along the way. Thus, she imparted this knowledge to her family accordingly. Now everything was put into practice. No one exhibited any misbehavior. Even Madame Yuezheng was pleasantly surprised. She had mentally prepared herself for any potential faux pas from this rural family. But such concerns were unnecessary. Even Madame Yuezheng couldn't help but admire the Xiao family, recognizing that they were genuinely kind-hearted and pleasant people. The first section of the family had truly made wise choices in their friendships. The dinner proceeded exceptionally well, with both guests and hosts thoroughly enjoying themselves. The atmosphere was lively and joyous. In the evening, the first madam insisted that Yuezheng Xiao accompany the Xiao family back home. Ms. Fong initially intended to decline the offer, but the first madam insisted, saying, "You are our guests, and that's how we treat our guests. Please don't be formal, Sister Fong." Ms. Fong expressed her gratitude and accepted the kind gesture. The following day, the first madam even dispatched some of her staff to deliver 2 jars of wine, a basket of live crabs, and 2 baskets filled with fresh grapes and pomegranates to the Xiao family for their enjoyment. Ms. Fong expressed her sincere gratitude, continuously praising Xiao Xian for befriending such wonderful individuals. Through this connection, she successfully established a friendship with the first madam and the kind-hearted Yuezheng family. During this time, Xie Jingrong and Yuezheng Xiao paid a visit to the Xiao family. With old friends gathered together, the gathering was filled with warmth and happiness. Xiao Xian, Tao Tao, and Yang Xiaoni decided to purchase additional ingredients from the nearby market and invited Xie Jingrong and Yuezheng Xiao to stay for lunch. They skillfully steamed the crabs and prepared various other delectable dishes. Madame Qiao couldn't contain her excitement and eagerly took Qiao Ko and Xiao Wei to visit the Yuezheng family. Concubine Du, on the other hand, was asked to remain at the hostel. Although Concubine Du complained silently within her heart, she dared not voice her grievances or challenge Madame Qiao's decision. She knew better than to oppose Madame Qiao. Meanwhile, the first madam treated everyone with kindness and grace, not finding fault with anyone but displaying her impeccable manners. But first madam had no intention of introducing them to Madame Yuezheng. While the first madam treated them as guests, her hospitality was not entirely sincere. However, in the eyes of Madame Qiao and her 2 daughters, they were overwhelmed with excitement, feeling that the first madam was showing them great warmth and affection. Unaware of their empty flattery, the first madam grew increasingly impatient. She was on the verge of instructing Auntie Hua to find an excuse to politely decline their request, when Madame Qiao suddenly inquired about Xiao Xian. Xian mentioned that she arrived in the province before us. She expressed her desire to pay her respects to you. Has she been here? First madam smiled and nodded. Yes, Xian and Sister Fong have already been here. In fact, I invited them to join us for a tour outside the city, and we even shared a celebratory dinner together yesterday in honor of the Double Ninth Festival. Chapter 777. Visiting what? You invited them to spend the day together? The 3 women's expressions instantly changed. Xiao Wei reacted the most fiercely, her anger bursting forth without any hesitation. First madam observed their reactions and sneered inwardly, perplexed by their distress. Why did they care so much about her treating Xiao Xian kindly? Why were they reacting so miserably, especially elder Miss Qiao? She appeared as though she had been struck. First madam couldn't comprehend it at all. It was true that the entire family disliked Xiao Xian, and had never treated her well. But she had openly invited Xiao Xian and her family to visit, with no intention of hiding her actions. She smiled and explained, I have always held great admiration for Xian, and I genuinely like her. Her husband and my son have established a good relationship, so when they came for a visit, I invited them to join us for dinner to celebrate and enjoy each other's company. Qiao Ko found satisfaction in Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei's displeasure. However, upon hearing First Madame speak so highly of Qiao Xian, she also felt annoyed. She smiled and inquired, "So the second sister was here? Where are they staying? My sisters and I have missed her terribly." Madame Qiao forced a smile and requested, "Please do tell us." She felt extremely irritated. However, she couldn't blame First Madame for inviting Qiao Xian and her in-laws to dinner while excluding them. Madame Qiao wasn't in a position to voice her displeasure, nor did she dare to do so. Before First Madame could respond, Qiao Wei interjected, "The second sister is always so selfish. She only cares about herself and not others. We discussed coming to the province together, but she arrived first without informing us. We don't even know where to find her." First Madame's expression faltered upon hearing Qiao Wei's words. She forced a fake smile and remarked, "I'll admire her strong-willed personality. She's a remarkable young woman, and I appreciate her assertiveness. Elder Miss Qiao, perhaps you have misunderstood her?" Madame Qiao, quick to defend her daughters, interrupted Qiao Wei saying, "They are close sisters and have always been carefree with each other. That's what Qiao Wei meant." First Madame smiled and nodded, saying, "Of course." Auntie Hua finally found an excuse and said, "First Madame, the housekeepers from the Southern Abbey are here waiting to see you. They have an urgent matter and need your attention before they leave, so." First Madame gave a regretful smile to Madame Qiao and said, "I'll apologize, but I must attend to this matter. Perhaps we can continue our conversation next time, Madame Qiao?" Madame Qiao, accustomed to being treated with respect and courtesy due to her association with County Magistrate Qiao, felt a surge of irritation. It had been years since she had been dismissed as a guest. Maintaining the family's reputation was crucial in business circles. Feeling her frustration mounting, she couldn't bear it any longer. She stood up, forced a smile, and bid farewell. "Very well then. Goodbye." "Goodbye." First Madame also rose from her seat and saw them off with a smile. Maids quickly stepped forward and escorted them out of the premises. Chapter 778. Feeling sorry, Qiao Wei and Qiao Ko felt a mix of disappointment and annoyance. They had expected First Madame to be generous and offer them presents as well. After all, she had showered Qiao Xian with precious gifts. Why were they being treated so differently? They couldn't help but wonder why the Yuezheng family didn't even bother to offer any presents during their first meeting. It seemed unfair and left them feeling overlooked. Unbeknownst to them, First Madame had indeed prepared some gifts. However, upon hearing Qiao Wei speak ill of Qiao Xian, and Qiao Ko constantly indicating their annoyance towards her, First Madame's initial goodwill wavered. She was a perceptive person and understood that maintaining superficial connections was unnecessary. Ultimately, she decided not to present them with any gifts. It was a subtle way of expressing her dissatisfaction and protecting Qiao Xian from unfair treatment. Madame Qiao, on the other hand, grew increasingly irritated by her encounter with First Madame. She couldn't fathom what was wrong with the Yuezheng family. She was about to return to the capital with her husband, and she had no intention of cultivating any further relationship with them. Perhaps their family's business in the north wasn't doing as well as she had presumed. Madame Qiao couldn't comprehend the arrogance displayed by the Yuezheng family in treating an officer's wife so poorly. In her eyes, they were nothing more than a group of uncivilized and narrow-minded individuals lacking basic manners. While she acknowledged that there was little she could do about the Yuezheng family directly, she was determined to make Qiao Xian suffer. Madame Qiao refused to let Qiao Xian believe that her husband's newfound status made her invincible. As the girl's biological mother, Madame Qiao believed she had the authority to teach her a lesson, despite her marriage. As Madame Qiao and her daughters departed from First Madame's residence, a realization struck her. First Madame had failed to provide them with the information regarding Qiao Xian and her in-laws' whereabouts. However, it was not feasible for her to turn back and inquire at that moment. Madame Qiao reluctantly let go of the thought, feeling even more disgruntled. Just as she was leaving the mansion with her biological daughter and the concubine's daughter, they unexpectedly encountered Ms. Mi Jr. Ms. Mi Jr. initially didn't recognize Madame Qiao and her daughters, resulting in a frown on her face. However, the maid intervened and introduced both parties to each other. Upon learning that Ms. Mi Jr. was the second Madame Yuezheng, Madame Qiao felt a surge of motivation and greeted her, inadvertently revealing her status as Qiao Xian's biological mother. She wanted to make it clear that Qiao Xian would never escape the influence of the Qiao family. Nis. Mi Jr.'s eyes lit up, and she greeted Madame Qiao with a smile. "Oh, Mrs. Xiao's lineal mother, greetings. You are too kind, second Mrs. Yuezheng." Madame Qiao felt even more irritated seeing Ms. Mi Jr. greet her for Qiao Xian's sake. Madame Qiao couldn't help but wonder if that wretched girl had managed to gather so many allies. She knew that First Madame didn't wish to keep her around, and Ms. Mi Jr.'s husband had sons of his own. It was a well-known fact that biological mothers and the children of concubines were rarely on good terms. Thus, Ms. Mi Jr. saw an opportunity to cause trouble, leveraging her position as the second madam to spite Qiao Xian's lineal mother. "My elder sister-in-law must be too busy to receive you well. I am free. If you want, what about having tea with me? We can have some nice chats with each other too." Faced with Ms. Mi Jr.'s warm, open arms, Madame Qiao and the two daughters were so surprised and glad. They were never going to miss this open opportunity. Madame Qiao accepted the invitation directly. Therefore, the three women walked away with Ms. Mi Jr. But the maid who was supposed to lead them out could not do anything, but reported the situation to First Madame honestly. First Madame was very surprised, but she did not mind. Instead, she smiled briefly. "My sister-in-law is very hospitable. She was never up to any good." But that did not bother her. Chapter 779. Unfriendly visit. She was up to no good. But that did not bother her. Ms. Mi Jr.'s actions and desires were beyond First Madame's control, as she was an independent individual with her own motives. However, First Madame remained unconcerned about Ms. Mi Jr.'s tricks. Madame Qiao and her two daughters were warmly received by Ms. Mi Jr. and her family. They had pleasant conversations, and Yuezheng Ting, Xiao Ko, and Xiao Wei quickly formed a friendship. It was a surprising turn of events for Madame Qiao and her daughters, leaving them highly satisfied when they departed in the afternoon. During their conversation, they found common ground in their dislike for Qiao Xian, Xiao Yunduan, and the Xiao family. Madame Qiao couldn't help but sneer as they left the Yuezheng family, instructing the coachman to take them to the alleyway. That damned girl had the audacity to buy a house in the province. Bah! On that particular day, Xie Jingrong and Yuezheng Xiao paid a visit to Xiao Yunduan. They spent half a day together, and extended an invitation for a small gathering the next day before their departure. Madame Qiao and her daughters arrived immediately after Xie Jingrong and Yuezheng Xiao had left. Xiao Xian and her family had been exploring the city and enjoying various activities, such as attending flower shows and hiking. They decided to have a well-deserved rest at home in the coming days. As a result, Xiao Xian, Ms. Fang, and the rest of the family were all present at home when Madame Qiao and her daughters arrived. The gate housekeepers were previously employed by First Madame. She had even transferred their contracts to Xiao Xian, so they now worked for her. They were responsible for taking care of the house in Xiao Xian's absence. Auntie Ling knocked forcefully on the door, and when the housekeeper opened it, he was greeted by Madame Qiao, her two daughters, two maids, and Auntie Ling. They all seemed to exude an air of intensity that made him feel slightly uneasy. The housekeeper was taken aback by the unexpected visitors. "Excuse me, who are you?" he asked, trying to regain his composure. Auntie Ling put on a strained smile. "Yes, this is the residence of the Xiao family from Shouting Village. We have come to visit." The housekeeper nodded, still somewhat bewildered. "Very well. Madame Qiao is the lineal mother of your Mrs. Xiao. Please inform her and ask her to come out and greet us," Auntie Ling instructed, her tone leaving no room for argument. The housekeeper hesitated for a moment. He was unaware of the relationship between Madame Qiao and Mrs. Xiao. However, without questioning further, he allowed them to enter and promptly informed his wife to relay the news to Mrs. Xiao. Madame Qiao observed the expansive yard with a mix of envy and annoyance, her resentment growing. She was determined to take out her frustrations on Xiao Xian. Upon hearing of their arrival, Xiao Xian greeted the news with a smile. I was just thinking about them. I didn't expect them to arrive so quickly. Ms. Fong hesitated, concern evident on her face. Xiao Xian, they have come here so swiftly. What do you plan to do? This house has plenty of rooms. If you don't mind, we can accommodate them for the night. Xiao Xian understood her mother-in-law's worries, aware that accommodating Madame Qiao and her daughters could strain their already delicate relationship. Don't worry, Mom, Xiao Xian reassured her. There's no need for them to stay overnight. One promise they won't want to. That's good to hear, Ms. Fong replied, relieved. She, too, had no desire for Madame Qiao and her daughters to spend the night in their home. Feeling reassured by Xiao Xian's words, Ms. Fong smiled warmly. I will go and see what our guests want. Xiaoni Tao Tao Chunyu Chuanfen, let's all go and see them. Chapter 780. The Qiao family's business. She was determined to support her daughter-in-law, ready to confront any bullying from her lineal mother. With a sense of warmth in her heart, Xiao Xian smiled confidently. All right, let's go and see what they want. The group made their way to the front yard, where they were met with piercing gazes from Madame Qiao and her two daughters. Xiao Xian, how dare you buy a house behind our backs? Explain yourself. Madame Qiao's voice was filled with anger. Xiao Wei couldn't contain her frustration any longer, and erupted in a furious shout. Explain yourself, Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. Explain? What for? You're speechless, aren't you? If it wasn't for second Mrs. Yuezheng, we wouldn't have found out about this. Xiao Wei's voice was filled with contempt. Ms. Fong cleared her throat, displaying confusion. Madam-in-law, your daughter is speaking quite rudely. Why should we have to inform you about our house purchases? Xiao Wei. Madame Qiao was stuck in words. Indeed, the Xiao family had every right to purchase the house without informing the Qiao family, as they didn't rely on them for financial support. The Qiao family's furious rush forward seemed unreasonable. Xiao Wei, determined to provoke a confrontation, sneered. We're all here together, so why pretend? Xiao Xian, did you pay for that house? Where did you get the money from? Xiao Xian did buy the house and possessed the contract. However, Ms. Fong had never asked her about it or sought to claim ownership for herself. Being an honest person, she appeared somewhat hesitant. Xiao Xian spoke up. Elder sister, you've never been to the Xiao family, so how can you know their financial situation? The Xiao family purchased the house. Young Master Yuezheng and my husband have been friends for a long time, so it's only natural for him to assist when my husband wanted to buy a house like this. Xiao Wei seethed with anger and exclaimed. Second Mrs. Yuezheng claimed that First Madam gave you this house. Xiao Xian responded calmly. Oh, she lied. Xiao Wei sneered. That's impossible. Why do you think so? If you want, you can bring Second Mrs. Yuezheng and First Madam here, and we can all discuss this together. Xiao Wei glared at her fiercely. She knew she would never be able to bring Second Mrs. Yuezheng or First Niadame here. Xiao Xian was deliberately making things difficult for her. It was all intentional. All right, Wei. Madame Qiao understood the situation clearly. They knew something fishy was going on, but they lacked proof to support their claims. Xiao Xian and Ms. Fong exchanged arguments, but they couldn't find any inconsistencies in each other's statements. Mrs.-in-law, why don't you invite us inside for some tea? Ms. Fong stepped aside and said, Please come in. Madame Qiao glanced at Xiao Xian with a mix of disappointment and concern. Didn't you say we were traveling together? Why did you leave on your own? Your father and I missed you. Xiao Xian responded calmly. Mom and Dad, third brother, third sister-in-law, Tao Tao, and she were all eager to come here. I was so caught up in the excitement that I forgot to inform you. I apologize, Mother. I will talk to Father about this. He is understanding, and I'm sure he won't hold it against me. Chapter 781. Cheap Deal. Madame Qiao. Madame Qiao's anger intensified. She had not expected Xiao Xian to be so adept at handling the situation. It only fueled her regret further. She wondered why she had allowed Xiao Xian to marry Xiao Yunduan in the first place. Perhaps she should have sent her to become a nun instead. Xiao Wei couldn't bear Qiao Xian's deliberate arguments. You did this on purpose. What a pathetic excuse. Qiao Xian, you are truly wicked. Qiao Xian inwardly sighed, thinking, how can you be so foolish? Unsurprisingly, Ms. Feng didn't take kindly to Qiao Wei's accusation. She retorted, Elder Miss Qiao, my daughter-in-law is telling the truth. We were all eager to explore the province, so we came together as a family. Yang Xiaoni chimed in. Yes, we were all excited about this trip. My fifth sister-in-law is incredibly kind and patient, explaining everything to us because we are unfamiliar with the area. It's only natural that she got caught up and forgot to inform you. Can't you understand that? Tao Tao chimed in, saying, we're not perfect, we can forget things. Yeah, stop nitpicking. You're right, everyone can forget things. Qiao Xian smiled warmly and contentedly, her eyes sparkling with joy. It was indeed a delightful day. Qiao Wei's face contorted in frustration. What was going on? How had Qiao Xian managed to win everyone over? Had she bought them off? Qiao Ko couldn't help but feel bitter and envious. It seemed like the women from the Xiao family were all standing up for Qiao Xian and contradicting Qiao Wei. Qiao Xian was incredibly fortunate to have such supportive in-laws. In the end, it turned out that Qiao Xian was the one who had struck gold. Qiao Xian's popularity among the Xiao family took Madame Qiao by surprise. She hadn't expected the women from the countryside to stand up for Qiao Xian and contradict her own daughter. Yet, she couldn't deny that Qiao Xian had carelessly fallen into their trap, leaving her with no excuses to defend her. Madame Qiao sighed inwardly, realizing that her daughter's impulsive behavior had put her in a difficult position. Trying to diffuse the tension, Madame Qiao forced a smile. Wei has always wanted to travel with Xian, and she was disappointed when it didn't happen. That's why she spoke rudely. Please, Mrs. In-law, don't be angry with her. Qiao Xian gracefully responded, it's all right, mother. My mother-in-law is understanding and forgiving. She won't hold any grudges against my sister. She explained herself to avoid any misunderstandings. Yang Xiaoni chimed in. Yes, my mother-in-law is truly wonderful. She treats us with so much kindness. The two sister-in-laws exchanged a warm smile, appreciating each other's positive qualities. Yang Xiaoni, being down-to-earth and genuine, continued to speak highly of her mother-in-law, unaware of the underlying tension. However, Qiao Xian noticed Madame Qiao's subtle mockery of her mother-in-law and refused to let it slide. She wouldn't allow Madame Qiao to belittle her mother-in-law. Ms. Feng, feeling pleased and grateful, beamed and said, that's because you are so kind, so I treat you well in return. I'm not a mean person. Please come in and have a seat, Mrs. In-law. Madame Qiao tightly held Qiao Wei's hands, maintaining a smile as they took their seats. Chunyu then served the tea. As Madame Qiao sipped the tea, she suddenly realized that she had nothing more to say. How could she interrogate Qiao Xian about the house or her decision to leave without them? She was at a loss for words, and unsure how to proceed. Chapter 782. Staying away. Madame Qiao was aware that First Madame held a dislike towards them, and she acknowledged First Madame's strong and independent nature, making it difficult to influence her. Qiao Xian's behavior didn't offer much support either, as her attitude seemed to align with First Madame's. Despite this, Madame Qiao felt fortunate to have made a connection with Second Mrs. Yuezheng. However, what Madame Qiao didn't realize was that Second Mrs. Yuezheng had no involvement in the family's business affairs. She lacked the capability to contribute or meddle in any significant way. Her only purpose seemed to be sowing discord among the family members, making her a rather futile contact. Nonetheless, Madame Qiao couldn't leave abruptly. After exchanging a few pleasantries, she decided to take her leave, requesting Qiao Xian to see them off. I would like to have a word with you, Madame Qiao stated. Of course, mother. Qiao Xian responded promptly, showing no hesitation. Ms. Feng and Yang Xiaoni exchanged worried glances as they observed the interaction between Madame Qiao and Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian reassured them with a smile and a slight shake of her head, indicating that she could handle the situation. Madame Qiao grew increasingly annoyed by this display. She felt a sense of frustration towards how the entire family seemed to perceive her. How could an in-law family behave in such a manner? Qiao Xian accompanied them outside. In the front yard, Madame Qiao cast a glance at the others, signaling her desire to speak with Qiao Xian privately. Qiao Wei wasn't particularly pleased, but after a momentary exchange of glances with Qiao Xian, she reluctantly complied. Do you have something to say to me? Qiao Xian asked with a smile. You are the wife of the provincial champion, and your popularity is soaring. I don't dare to give you any orders. Madame Qiao remarked sarcastically. Qiao Xian maintained a pretense of ignorance towards the mockery, responding with a bashful smile. I'm not that popular, but I'm happy. After all, my husband holds the title of provincial champion. Madame Qiao's expression softened slightly. Why had she attempted to mock Qiao Xian in the first place? She gazed at Qiao Xian intently and asked, Qiao Xian, I can see through you now. Do you hate me and the old master? Qiao Xian denied it, a serene expression on her face. That's not true. We can simply keep our distance from each other, just as we have done in the past. Madame Qiao sneered. Xiao Yunduan is still far from becoming an official. Are you already trying to push us away? Qiao Xian countered. Haven't we always been distant from each other? What do you mean by pushing you away now? Madame Qiao felt a mix of shame and anger welling up within her. Indeed, their relationship had been virtually non-existent until Old Master sought to curry favor with Xiao Yunduan. Considering his promising future, you truly despise us. What do you think the Old Master will do when he learns of this? Madame Qiao questioned. Qiao Xian maintained her smile. As a married daughter, you have no power over me. Madame Qiao, focus on earning the trust of County Magistrate Qiao first. You. Madame Qiao's mind raced with one thought. I won't let her live in peace. I won't let Xiao Yunduan succeed. Otherwise, this wretched girl will overshadow and trample over me. You were the one who made the lipsticks, weren't you? Madame Qiao suddenly inquired, recalling the information she had heard from Ms. Mi Jr. The popularity of the lipsticks was undeniable, and Madame Qiao was well aware of how challenging it was to obtain one. Qiao Xian, in her eyes, lacked the skill to create such exquisite products. However, Madame Qiao couldn't dismiss the possibility that Ms. Mi Jr. had spoken the truth. Qiao Xian had been deceiving her all along, hiding her true abilities. She lied. She lied so she could create those lipsticks, Madame Qiao realized. Qiao Xian met her gaze, a smile playing on her lips as she nodded. Yes, I did. Chapter 783. Trouble. Madame Qiao felt a surge of anger and frustration upon learning the extent of Qiao Xian's success. It was a substantial amount of money that Qiao Xian had made from the lipstick business. The popularity of the lipsticks had persisted for over a year in the province, and yet Madame Qiao and her old master had struggled immensely to gather enough funds for old master's position in the capital. If only she had known about Qiao Xian's financial success earlier, she wouldn't have endured so many sleepless nights or sold precious belongings. Qiao Xian, seemingly aware of Madame Qiao's vexation, added fuel to the fire with a mischievous smile. Actually, it's not entirely my doing. My sister-in-laws have been instrumental, and this wealth belongs to the Xiao family. Madame Qiao forced a smile, understanding that Qiao Xian was purposefully provoking her. However, she was at a loss as to what she could do about the situation. Even though she now knew that Qiao Xian was the mastermind behind the profitable lipstick business, she was powerless to take action against her. Madame Qiao's mind was filled with determination. She refused to let go of the matter regarding the lipsticks. She planned to discuss it with the old master, seeking to acquire the instructions and secure a continuous source of wealth for their family. With the success of the lipstick business, both she and the old master would no longer have to face financial hardships. Furthermore, Madame Qiao had heard that the lipsticks had made their way to the capital and were receiving positive acclaim. If she could obtain the source of these lipsticks, she could establish connections with influential and noble individuals, potentially improving their social standing. For now, she would have to endure and bide her time. The Xiao family is indeed remarkable. You're fortunate to have married into such a capable family, Madame Qiao remarked sarcastically. Qiao Xian maintained her composure and replied, Thank you for acknowledging their assistance, mother. I will always remember your kindness. Madame Qiao sneered in response. Make sure you do. She then took Qiao Wei and Xiao Ko with her, and Xiao Wei was on the verge of asking a question when she abruptly stopped. Mother, the Xiao family is quite formidable. Xiao Yunduan is just an ordinary recommended man. They think they have already reached great heights. Qiao Wei was seething with anger. Xiao Xian never mentioned this house to us. Is it so degrading to have a house like this? She didn't even invite us to stay. But I wouldn't want to stay with her either. And she doesn't say a word about it. Mother, she's humiliating you, Qiao Wei exclaimed, her frustration evident. Madame Qiao's expression turned cold. Indeed, Xiao Xian was humiliating her. She was also humiliating the old master. They were both in trouble now. The old master was too foolish to realize that they were not hated. The couple was narrow-minded and sought revenge. Let it go. Don't waste your anger on such people. We now know everything about her, and I will have a serious conversation with your father, Madame Qiao stated firmly. And don't mention the lipsticks in front of her. Qiao Wei's eyes gleamed with curiosity. She asked indignantly. I almost forgot to ask her. Mother, did she really make those lipsticks? Madame Qiao nodded. Qiao Wei gasped, her disbelief evident on her face. Xiao Ko looked up, his expression filled with shock. I can't believe it. Xiao Wei exclaimed, struggling to accept the reality. How could she possibly create something as amazing as lipsticks? It's impossible. Madame Qiao's tone turned ominous as she responded. I thought the same. When did that wretched girl learn about this? But just look at her, always pretending, and we never knew what she was capable of. Qiao Wei was at a loss for words. Chapter 784. Invitation. Xiao Xian had undergone a remarkable transformation from her previous timid demeanor as the daughter of a concubine. Second Mrs. Yuzheng's words held a persuasive power that resonated with Qiao Wei. It became apparent that the favorable treatment Xiao Xian and the Xiao family received from the Yuezheng family was not due to genuine friendship, but driven by their pursuit of profits. The memory of the alluring lipsticks, particularly the limited editions she had glimpsed in a store a few days ago, filled Qiao Wei's mind, intensifying her desire to acquire them immediately. Mom, can't we get a few sets from her? Qiao Wei blurted out, referring to the woman in question. Xiao Ko, equally captivated by the allure of the lipsticks, contemplated for a moment and then smiled, saying, Mother, I also wish to have some. After all, our sister is the one who creates them. It seems only fair that she shares a few with us, wouldn't you agree? Madame Qiao responded. Let's not ask her right away. I have a plan. Qiao Wei's dissatisfaction was evident, but Xiao Ko, ever agreeable, smiled and expressed her agreement with their mother's decision. The Qiao family's absence from the doorstep brought a sense of relief to the Xiao family. Xiao Xian shifted her focus towards purchasing 1,000 mu of land instead. With the assistance of the Yuezheng family, she smoothly carried out the development plan for the barren lands by enlisting people to conduct explorations. Xiao Xian once again approached Yuezheng Xiao, requesting additional seeds of tangerines, pomelos, dragon fruits, and papayas from the southern region. The more seeds she could acquire, the better. She resolved to plant them as soon as possible, eager to see if her extraordinary abilities could help them survive the winter. If mangoes, lychees, and longans bore fruit next year, she intended to expand their cultivation further. Yuezheng Xiao, displaying great generosity, responded by personally hiring reliable individuals from his own family company to procure the seeds. Ensuring the survival of the transported seedlings became their primary concern, though Xiao Xian and the others were confident it wouldn't pose significant difficulties. Xiao Xian held no worries about the transportation process. These seedlings were not delicate or fragile. They could withstand the journey without issue, particularly the dragon fruits and papayas, which were known for their resilience. In addition to acquiring fruits from the southern region, Xiao Xian secured 30 mu of land for lemon trees, and another 20 mu for figs. Once Xiao Xian finalized the plan, she no longer had to visit the fields daily since Yuezheng Xiao's team took care of the necessary arrangements. However, Xiao Xian didn't completely delegate the responsibility. She continued to make regular visits to the fields. Sometimes she would bring along Tao Tao and Yang Xiaoni, allowing them to accompany her and learn more about the process, which would prove beneficial for their own knowledge. On a particular day, an unexpected invitation arrived from Yue Jingting, inviting Qiao Xian to a gathering. Qiao Xian was taken aback by the surprise invitation, but ultimately accepted it wholeheartedly. Qiao Xian found herself without the company of Yang Xiaoni, Tao Tao, or Chunyu. However, she knew she had to protect herself even without their presence. Escorted by a female maid, Qiao Xian climbed into a wagon that would take them beyond the city's limits. Curiosity did not drive her to inquire about their destination. Eventually, they arrived at a mansion situated in an outskirts area. Qiao Xian spotted Yue Jingting engaged in conversation with Qiao Kou and Qiao Wei. While she hadn't anticipated this meeting, she wasn't surprised either. Madame Qiao had previously spoken with Ms. Mi Jr., and it was only natural for Qiao Kou and Qiao Wei to form a friendship. Qiao Xian understood the underlying dynamics. "Mrs. Xiao, how unexpected to have you respond to my invitation. What a delightful surprise." Yue Jingting sneered, her tone laced with mockery. Yue Jingting knew that she could never marry Xie Jingrong. Yet, she refused to be forced into a union with anyone else, especially when her mother persisted in finding a suitable suitor. Yue Jingting was determined to find a way to escape such arrangements. Chapter 785. Bold Talk. Xie Jingrong held a special place in Yue Jingting's heart. He served as her standard when it came to seeking a potential suitor. When Yue Jingting faced obstacles that prevented her from reaching her goals, she often needed to direct her frustration towards someone else, as a means to convince herself that her own abilities were not at fault. Regrettably, Qiao Xian was the unfortunate target of this misplaced anger. "Thank you, Lady Yuezheng. I could never refuse your gracious invitation. However, it would have been nice if you had informed me about my sisters. That would have brought me even more joy." Qiao Wei snorted dismissively, casting a cold gaze in her direction. This woman truly excelled at boastful remarks. Not a hint of embarrassment crossed her face. No wonder Mother had admitted to misjudging her character. Qiao Xian now understood why. Qiao Kou exchanged a glance with Qiao Xian, chuckling softly. "It's never too late to learn about it now, sister." Qiao Xian responded, her tone laced with humor. "Indeed. I'll simply consider it a grand surprise party in my honor." The three girls. A grand surprise party? Qiao Xian really knew how to make herself special, didn't she? "Would like to visit Lingyuan Temple and see the flowers. Hi, don't we go together?" Yue Jingting suggested, her tone betraying annoyance. Qiao Xian didn't refuse the proposal. Instead, she smiled and agreed. They boarded the wagon and set off towards Lingyuan Temple. The temple wasn't too far from the mansion, and they reached it within half an hour. Nestled amidst the mountains, the temple was surrounded by towering ancient trees. As they ascended the steps, the tranquility of the surroundings dispelled the remnants of summer's heat. Normally, climbing the mountain with close friends and family would be a delightful experience, creating a sense of contentment. However, with Yue Jingting, Qiao Kou, and Qiao Wei by her side, Qiao Xian had to remain cautious and curious. Qiao Xian had no idea of their true intentions for bringing her here, but she was certain that they had ulterior motives. With her superpower by her side, Qiao Xian felt no worry at all. Lady Yuezheng held considerable influence, and it seemed she had made prior arrangements, as the monks warmly received them and provided a serene courtyard for their rest. Qiao Kou and Qiao Wei rarely ventured out, as there were limited places for amusement in the county. Thus, they displayed great interest in the temple, which was renowned as one of the province's 3 great temples. As Yue Jingting had visited numerous times, she took great pride in showing them around and sharing information about its history. The landscape in the back mountain was breathtakingly beautiful. On this delightful autumn day, flowers adorned every corner. Yue Jingting guided them through the scenic areas, and they engaged in pleasant conversations as they strolled. The mountainous terrain was rugged, twisting, and uneven, far from flat. Yue Jingting and Qiao Wei exchanged a knowing glance before shifting their gaze to their maids. Li and Fendi approached Qiao Xian with deliberate slowness, before suddenly giving her a push and a shove. With a startled scream, Xiao Xian tumbled down the hill, rolling all the way until she landed amidst the shrubbery, her cries echoing in the air. Observing Xiao Xian lying motionless in the grass, the group assumed she had lost consciousness. Yue Jingting chuckled and sneered. "I thought she was quite nimble. Turns out, she's just a fragile little thing." Xiao Ko joined in the laughter, remarking, "She brought this upon herself by being so confident and coming alone." "That was a foolish decision on her part," added another girl. The trio erupted in laughter, relishing in the situation. Xiao Wei, wearing a satisfied expression, flattered Yue Jingting with a smile. "You are truly clever, Sister Yuezheng. With her reputation ruined, she will never be able to recover." They eagerly anticipated whether Xiao Xian's provincial champion husband would still want her after such a downfall. Chapter 786. Not that easy. Yue Jingting joined in the laughter. "Indeed. I despise her. And it's satisfying to see her in this state." Xiao Xian, the woman, had been married, but she continued to seduce Brother Xie and slander Xiao Xian in his presence, deliberately creating misunderstandings. Yue Jingting had no intention of allowing her to live a peaceful life. Glancing at the others, Yue Jingting reminded them, "Remember our plan? We cannot afford any mistakes if questioned." Xiao Wei and the others nodded in agreement. They had rehearsed their story beforehand. They would claim that they had traveled together, and Xiao Xian had insisted on reaching the flowers on the steep hill, but had a mishap and fell. Initially they hadn't paid much attention, but their panic grew when they couldn't find her. They had searched everywhere but failed, which led to them seeking help from the temple staff. The three girls exchanged sinister smirks. By presenting this narrative, when they eventually went to search for Xiao Xian, everything would have transpired as planned. Whatever happened to Xiao Xian would no longer be their concern. Xiao Xian had brought this upon herself by accepting their invitation despite having offended them. Not everyone was as gullible and feeble as she seemed. The three girls chatted and walked, their confidence and wickedness evident in their smiles. They decided to spend an hour in a secluded area before heading to the temple to enlist someone's assistance in searching for Xiao Xian. However, as they took a few steps, their feet became entangled in vines, causing them to trip and roll downhill into the shrub. Huddled closely together, Xiao Xian, using her superpower, had been closely monitoring their every move and conversation since their arrival at Lingyuan Temple. She witnessed Yue Jingting and Xiao Wei instructing the maids to push her. Being aware of their malicious intentions, she strategically positioned herself to roll down the hill at the exact moment of their push. Utilizing her powers, she had vines protect her during the descent. Thus, despite appearing disheveled and injured from the girl's perspective, she was completely unharmed. However, rolling downhill did result in some minor injuries, but they were inconsequential. Lying motionless, Xiao Xian employed her full superpower to capture their laughter and venomous words. She couldn't comprehend why girls raised in prominent families would exhibit such wickedness at such a young age. They delighted in tormenting others due to their wealth and influence, and today, Xiao Xian would repay them for their actions. They would not be allowed to leave unscathed. Therefore, harnessing her superpower, Xiao Xian caused the vines to rapidly grow and strengthen, creating a tangle that tripped the girls, sending them tumbling downhill. The effect of her superpower on the plants was temporary, and they would soon return to their normal state. However, it would take approximately half a month for the plants to fully recover. Chapter 787. Capable and fearless Xiao Xian's superpower served as her ultimate weapon, granting her immunity to toxins and instilling her with unwavering fearlessness. She could confidently go anywhere without concern, including accepting Yue Jingting's invitation. As anticipated, they all tumbled downhill and lost consciousness, completely unaware of Xiao Xian's intervention. However, she used her powers to deliver a light, precise slap on the back of their heads, causing them to remain unconscious. Xiao Xian believed that once they woke up, they would feel something amiss but attribute it to fear and confusion rather than suspecting her involvement. With no tangible evidence, they would be unable to find fault with her. Carefully concealing herself behind the shrubs, Xiao Xian observed the evil-hearted women, eager to uncover their true intentions. She had nothing to fear. She was in control. A surge of anger coursed through Qiao Xian's veins. These two men must be searching for her, assuming she would still be unconscious. Yue Jingting and Qiao Wei had stooped to unimaginable depths of darkness. The men continued their search, glancing around until their gaze finally fell upon Yue Jingting and the other girls. Qiao Xian didn't disclose the exact number of girls they spotted, but the tone of surprise indicated that there were more than one. The confusion on the men's faces was evident, but since they didn't recognize Yue Jingting or Qiao Wei, they decided not to pass up the opportunity presented by the seemingly slumbering beauties before them. Engaging in a brief, hushed conversation, the two men then proceeded to approach different girls, each claiming their own prize. Just as the two men approached the women, Qiao Xian unleashed her superpower, causing the vines to grow rapidly and deliver powerful slaps to the back of their heads. The force sent them tumbling to the ground, with one falling onto Yue Jingting and the other onto Qiao Wei. It was as if fate had intervened, placing them in their deserved positions. Qiao Xian, though harboring deep resentment towards them, didn't want to stoop to their level of malice. She couldn't bear to witness two young women being humiliated by independent men. Her revenge had its limits, for she sought to teach them a lesson rather than inflict lasting harm. Remaining in her hidden spot, Qiao Xian sat in the grass, her gaze fixed on the unfolding events. Soon enough, a representative from the temple arrived to escort them for lunch. Qiao Xian couldn't help but smile, knowing that a captivating spectacle was about to ensue. The temple's representatives were two teenage monks who possessed extensive knowledge of the mountain terrain. When they failed to locate the women in the designated area, they grew increasingly worried. Aware of the steep slopes and potential hazards, their concern escalated. Finally, their search led them to the site of the women lying downhill. Filled with alarm, they hurriedly returned to the temple to summon additional help. Chapter 788. Crazy upon witnessing the women lying in such a manner, the two teenage monks refrained from approaching. They hesitated, fearful of potential accusations and lacking evidence to defend themselves. Instead, they swiftly returned to the temple and guided dozens of other monks to the scene. Qiao Xian, aware of the imminent arrival of the monks, positioned herself among the motionless figures and closed her eyes, feigning unconsciousness. As the monks gathered around, the scene transformed into a grand spectacle. Qiao Xian observed the unfolding drama in silence, just meters away. Taking advantage of the commotion, she discreetly employed her superpower, extending the plant roots towards Yue Jingting and Qiao Wei, causing them to gradually awaken. Yue Jingting and Qiao Wei regained consciousness, their eyes falling upon the unsightly, disheveled man lying on top of them. A horrified scream escaped their lips. Shortly after, Qiao Xian was discovered as well. She slowly woke up, deliberately portraying a pale, frightened expression on her face, as if she too had endured a terrifying ordeal. The three maids, equally distressed and injured, joined in the chorus of cries. Upon returning to the temple, Yue Jingting and Qiao Wei remained engulfed in a whirlwind of humiliation and fury. Tears streamed down their faces as they cursed vehemently, unable to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. They had never imagined that a simple trip could lead to such a horrifying encounter. The mere sight of those two unknown men hovering above them had etched a nightmare into their souls, an ordeal they believed would haunt them forever. To make matters worse, their distressing ordeal had unfolded in front of numerous witnesses. Consumed by anger, the two girls yearned to seek vengeance. They directed their curses towards the men and ultimately, Qiao Xian, blaming her for orchestrating the entire incident. However, Qiao Xian calmly defended herself, asserting her innocence. One had no part in this. I fell first and lost consciousness. How could I possibly have set you up? The sincerity in Qiao Xian's words resonated with the monks, who found her explanation convincing. Nevertheless, the rage within Yue Jingting and Qiao Wei remained unabated, rendering them impervious to any form of reasoning. The two women's curses grew fiercer, their determination to never forgive Qiao Xian intensifying. Of course it was you, Qiao Xian. You are truly wicked. I will never forgive you for this. Nor will I. Qiao Xian's face sank. You may be angry, and one understand that. But one will not allow myself to be unjustly accused. The world is just, and I fear no false accusations. If you dare to blame me, go ahead and try. Her words carried a provocative tone, as if she knew that their plan to frame her had crumbled. The two girls continued to curse loudly, their anger unrestrained. Xiao Xian halted in her tracks and turned away, her expression filled with fury. The monks furrowed their brows, feeling both uncomfortable and disgusted by the scene unfolding before them. It was clear that Mrs. Xiao had fallen first, a fact that the two women did not deny. Blaming Xiao Xian seemed unreasonable and unfounded. No wonder the two girls ran into trouble. Growing weary of the situation, some monks interjected, suggesting that they return to the temple and discuss the matter later. The two women ceased their curses momentarily, redirecting their threats towards the monks, warning them never to utter a word about what had transpired that day, under the threat of eternal unforgiveness. However, the two women's threats held little weight, as they had nothing new to use as leverage. The monks unanimously expressed their commitment to keeping the events a secret, not willing to risk further entanglement with the enraged duo. Chapter 789. Stupid Yuezhingting, driven by anger, resorted to threatening the monks to swear to the Buddhas. However, her audacity and arrogance incited fury among the monks. Who did she think she was to demand such a sacred oath from them? The monks saw no reason to comply with her demands. Instead, they firmly stated that they would not swear to the Buddhas, but they would honor their commitment to keep the events confidential. Whether Yuezhingting chose to believe them or not was up to her. Moreover, in a community where people talked, it was highly likely that word of the incident would eventually spread. At this point, there was little more the monks could do to assist them. Xiaowei, as a guest, refrained from further cursing, sobbing sorrowfully instead. In contrast, Yuezhingting's anger intensified, leading her to lash out and attack the monks verbally. However, it was important to note that the monks had no obligation to assist the Yuezhing family beyond the bounds of common decency. The monks would have already left if it weren't for the Yuezhing family's title and the location where the incident occurred. After the incident, the monks promptly sent messengers to inform both the Yuezhing family and Xiao Xian's family about what had transpired. Xiao Xian had anticipated this and had requested the monks to inform her family and the first madam as well. Feeling sympathetic towards Xiao Xian, the monks agreed willingly and informed both parties without delay. Soon First Madam, Ms. Mi Jr., and Nis. Feng were all informed of the situation. Ms. Mi Jr. then relayed the news to Madame Qiao, and they all became greatly concerned and anxious. First Madam took the lead and made the decision for them all to travel to the temple together. Yuezhingting's actions were quite impulsive and lacked foresight. Before anyone else was aware of what had happened, Yuezhingting threw herself into Ms. Mi Jr.'s arms, overcome with tears of fear and distress. Amidst her tearful sobs, she recounted the terrifying experience of waking up to find a repulsive and unsightly man on top of her. This revelation startled Ms. Mi Jr. and First Madam, as well as everyone else present. First Madam's voice rang out sharply as she snapped, "This girl must have been terrified, and she's likely speaking nonsense. Take her to a room to rest." Only then did Ms. Mi Jr. grasp the situation. She interrupted Yuezhingting's cries and guided her back to the room that had been arranged by the temple. First Madam led Xiao Xian, the rest of their group, the monks who had come to their aid, and the temple chief to proceed with further discussions. The temple was now entangled in this matter, and it was necessary to clarify everything. First Madam turned to Xiao Xian and asked, "What happened?" Yuezhingting interjected, cursing, "She set us up. It was all her doing." First Madam's expression hardened. "Quiet down now. You'll have your chance to speak." Ms. Mi Jr.'s anger flared up. "Elder sister-in-law, you're siding with an outsider." First Madam sneered. "Have you forgotten about the fan?" Ms. Mi Jr. found herself at a loss for words. Xiao Xian responded, "Lady Yuezhing, how amusing. You had a whole entourage with you, while I had no maids by my side. You invited me to join you for a pleasant time in the temple and the surrounding mountains, and now you accuse me of setting you up?" Madame Qiao intervened sharply. Xian, mind your manners. Lady Yuezheng would never plot against you. Ms. Feng, displeased by Madame Qiao's statement, retorted. Madam, you may not be Qiao's biological mother, but that doesn't mean you should show such obvious favoritism, does it? Chapter 790. Glaring, Elle believed Qiao Xian is being completely reasonable. Let's maintain a respectful tone, shall we? There are numerous monks present who can serve as witnesses, if needed. Ms. Feng interjected. Madame Qiao, unable to counter the arguments of First Madam and Ms. Mi Jr. due to their higher social status, felt a surge of anger and shame. Her face turned sour as she replied. I am simply teaching my own daughter a lesson. What is the meaning behind all of this? Ms. Feng snorted in response. Qiao Xian is my daughter-in-law, and I am defending her. Before you attempt to teach your daughter a lesson, perhaps you should learn the complete truth first. You initiated everything without knowing the full story. Madam Qiao, please calm down. Let's hear the entire account first. I warn everyone that any interruptions will result in removal from this discussion. Madam Qiao struggled to contain her anger. Though furious, Ms. Mi Jr. refrained from provoking any further. Both women glared coldly at Qiao Xian, awaiting her testimony. Qiao Xian lowered her gaze and began recounting the events, starting with Yuezheng Ting's invitation, their meeting in the temple and back mountains, her fall from the mountains, and waking up to witness the recent incident. Qiao Xian provided a detailed account of the events, leaving no stone unturned. First Madam couldn't help but cast a disapproving look at Qiao Xian. This child was quite audacious. Despite being aware of Yuezheng Ting's dislike for her and her sister's mischievous nature, she still decided to attend their gathering alone. Such boldness. Ms. Feng also furrowed her brow at Qiao Xian, clearly showing her disapproval of the decision. Are you injured? Both ladies asked simultaneously, turning their attention to Qiao Xian. Feeling touched by their concern, Qiao Xian smiled and shook her head slightly. My left arm is a bit sore, but other than that, I'm fine. I've already sent someone to fetch a doctor. They should be here soon. Just wait for a little while. First Madam assured her. Thank you, Aunt. First Madam sneered and shifted her gaze towards Qiao Ko. Now it's your turn. Do you have any objections to what Xian has said? Qiao Ko was taken aback. Qiao Ko felt the piercing gaze of her lineal mother on her. She wondered if it was just her imagination, but she couldn't shake off the feeling of impending doom. She was certain that she was doomed. Although something had happened to Qiao Wei, she was unscathed. How could she ever defend herself against the accusations that she hadn't taken good care of her younger sister? Her lineal mother would not believe it was a mere accident, and would blame her for negligence. Qiao Ko had no grounds to refute Qiao Xian's account. It was true that they had invited her to their home, and proposed a visit to Lingyuan Temple. Yuezheng Ting had arranged for lunch and a clean yard for their rest. They had attempted to conceal their ulterior motives by pretending it was a pilgrimage to pay tribute to the Buddha. But those arrangements served as evidence that they had invited Qiao Xian for this visit. They couldn't deny it. Moreover, Qiao Xian had fallen off the mountain first. That was a fact. Apart from this, Qiao Xian didn't provide any further details. She didn't even mention being pushed off the mountains. Qiao Ko trembled. Her head hung low as she sobbed. I don't know, I truly don't know anything. She couldn't tarnish Qiao Xian's reputation or set her up. She didn't dare to do so, and she couldn't claim ignorance either. Their current circumstances were different. She wouldn't be able to unjustly frame or falsely accuse Qiao Xian, because their biological mother wouldn't allow her to defend herself. Chapter 791. Qiao Ko's jealousy. The lineal mother only sought an outlet for her anger, regardless of how baseless and ridiculous that excuse might be. However, it was evident that the old tactic wouldn't work this time. First Madam and Ms. Feng were determined to prevent Qiao Xian from being wrongly accused. Even Madame Qiao couldn't exert control over these two women. Qiao Ko felt a mix of envy and bitterness. Qiao Xian seemed to be protected by an impenetrable shield, stronger than her own. Inwardly sneering, First Madam decided not to press Qiao Ko further. She let out a sigh and said emotionally, The child must have been frightened. Let's leave her be. Elder Miss Qiao, it's your turn. Qiao Wei had been eagerly awaiting her moment. She glared at Qiao Xian and asserted, "It must have been Qiao Xian who framed us. I don't know. I don't know how she did it, but it must have been her. Why else would we all fall? It was her doing." Yue Jingting chimed in with a gleam in her eyes. "Sister Qiao Wei is absolutely right. Qiao Xian must have set us up." Qiao Xian sneered in response. "I'm genuinely curious about that as well. But you've given me a reminder. I didn't plan on mentioning this, but your mates actually pushed me from behind. I'm not sure how you fell, but maybe it was because you weren't accustomed to the mountains, and in your confusion, you tripped each other and fell as a group. Doesn't that seem plausible?" "Sister, your absurdity knows no bounds. Are you suggesting that I should be wrongly convicted regardless of whether I'm guilty or innocent?" Qiao Xian retorted. "You're lying. Qiao Xian, how dare you defy me?" Qiao Wei snapped angrily. Qiao Wei had always been the dominant figure in the family, thanks to Madame Qiao's excessive doting. She believed that her words held absolute authority. Even if she claimed that the sun was square, both Qiao Xian and Qiao Ko would have no choice but to nod in agreement, rather than challenge her. For a long time, Qiao Wei had been adept at manipulating Qiao Xian and Qiao Ko to bend to her will. But now Qiao Xian had slipped from her grasp. Qiao Xian staunchly contradicted her, exposing her humiliation for all to see. Furious and ashamed, Qiao Wei couldn't tolerate it any longer. Yet Qiao Xian remained unafraid. She openly countered. "What do you mean? You accuse me of something I didn't do, and am not allowed to defend myself? That's enough." Madame Qiao's voice quivered with anger. She was seething inside, but it was unclear whether she regretted raising Qiao Wei to be such an unreasonable girl. "Wei, you're frightened and confused today. Stop this behavior now. Second Lady Yuezheng, please make the final decision for us." Madame Qiao's face contorted in frustration. Qiao Wei's actions were completely irrational and bothersome. She couldn't even trust her daughter's words, let alone expect others to do so. On the other hand, Qiao Xian was remarkably composed and logical. Madame Qiao couldn't help but regret allowing this troublesome girl to survive. Why hadn't she taken care of her from the very beginning? First Madame continued to provoke her. She furrowed her brow and spoke icily. "Elder Miss Qiao, your words sound utterly ridiculous. Setting someone up requires a motive. Otherwise, it's nothing more than a joke." Ms. Fong wiped her tears and sighed deeply. "My daughter-in-law is being bullied." Chapter 792. Too late. You're the one trying to set us up now. Do you think my daughter-in-law has no one to defend her? Poor girl. How much suffering must she have endured before getting married? Ms. Fang's words dripped with disdain. Madame Qiao trembled with anger. "What are you insinuating?" "Anais." Fang sneered. "You don't understand what I'm saying? This sister of hers doesn't protect or support her own sister. Instead, she sets her up without even providing a decent excuse. Do you really need me to explain how she became like this?" Madame Qiao seethed with rage, her face alternating between red and pale, trembling uncontrollably. "Bastard, you absolute bastard." Qiao Wei erupted in anger. "Who does she think she is? She doesn't deserve to be called my sister." Ms. Fong glanced at her dismissively. "That's not for you to decide, Elder Miss Qiao. You should ask your father about it." "You, Wei." Madame Qiao snapped at Qiao Wei, signaling her to stop. She was also incensed by Ms. Fang's relentless targeting of someone much younger. How shameless. Qiao Wei ground her teeth together, glaring fiercely at Ms. Fong. Ms. Fong remained unfazed, raising an eyebrow with an air of disdain. Qiao Wei was only intimidating within the confines of their home. First Madame turned to Ms. Mi Jr. "Second sister-in-law, I intend to investigate this matter. Can I count on your assistance?" Ms. Mi Jr. sneered. "Very well, elder sister-in-law. I appreciate your efforts." Ms. Mi Jr. understood that when her elder sister-in-law made a proposal, she had no choice but to agree. She would assign her own men to assist in the investigation, as they feared her authority. She would simply follow the orders and ensure the task was carried out. First Madame then addressed Madame Qiao. Madam Chiao, do you have any objections? Madam Chiao was filled with objections, but with Ms. Mi Jr. already on board, she had no choice but to voice her agreement. She forced herself to nod. Please, First Madam. I will see if Auntie Ling can be of any assistance to you. In an instant, First Madam commanded, take the 3 maids down, bind and gag them, then interrogate them one by one. Auntie Hua and her maids swiftly moved into action, swiftly subduing the maids before they could call for help. She assist Auntie Hua with the interrogations. Chu and Auntie Liang, go and inquire about the monks. Remember, maintain politeness. With several individuals departing, the room fell into a hushed silence once again. At that moment, the doctors arrived. First Madam instructed them to examine Xiao Xian. Yue Jingting pursed her lips, feeling disheartened. Despite being a part of the Yue Jing family, her elder aunt was now aiding an outsider. She couldn't comprehend what was so special about Xiao Xian that garnered her elder aunt's attention. Ms. Mi Jr. also harbored a dislike for the situation, but dared not voice her opinion. She was already convinced of the culprit's identity. Furthermore, First Madam had ample justification for her actions. She was no match for her. She realized that she lacked any authority or influence in this situation, so she chose not to subject herself to further humiliation. Madam Chiao, Xiao Ko, and Xiao Wei were equally taken aback. They hadn't anticipated that First Madam would show such concern for Xiao Xian. Madam Chiao deeply regretted her past actions. If she had known about Xiao Xian's relationship with First Madam, she would have prevented Xiao Wei and Yue Jingting from plotting against her. Instead, she would have compelled Xiao Xian to foster a better rapport between herself and First Madam. Chapter 793. Not dropping regrettably, it was too late for Madam Chiao to take any corrective action. She had paid 2 visits to second Mrs. Yue Jing, and engaged in friendly conversations, unaware that First Madam was well aware of these meetings. A burning sensation consumed Madam Chiao's heart. She glared fiercely at Xiao Xian, wishing she could incinerate her on the spot. She had misjudged her completely. It now dawned on her just how wrong she had been about Xiao Xian all this time. Surely this cunning girl was reveling in their predicament, secretly mocking them. The doctor confirmed that Xiao Xian had suffered a minor fracture in her arm, along with some superficial skin wounds and strained muscles. She needed ample rest. Additionally, due to her fall from the mountain, there was a possibility of a head injury, requiring further examination in the coming days. First Madam gazed at her with genuine concern. You have endured so much. Good girl, rest well and don't dwell on these matters. If you need anything, send someone to me, and I will provide assistance without hesitation. Miss Fong sighed once more. You must be more cautious. Why did you venture alone without a maid? Take good care of yourself when you return home. Xiao Xian replied with sweetness. Mom, Aunt, I apologize for this incident. I promise to exercise caution and prioritize rest upon returning home. That's good to hear. Madam Chiao and Ms. Mi Jr. were left speechless, their hearts heavy with regret. First Madam finally instructed the doctor to examine Yue Jingting and Xiao Wei. Fortunately, neither of them had any serious injuries, only a few minor skin wounds. Xiao Wei had a longer cut on her arm, but it was expected to heal without leaving a scar. Madam Chiao and Ms. Mi Jr. found themselves at a loss for words. Their daughter's injuries were not severe enough to justify their anger and resentment. Auntie Hua swiftly obtained the results and returned to deliver the message. As witnesses, they needed to know the truth behind the incident. Yue Jingting had orchestrated the entire affair. She had invited Xiao Xian and arranged the outing at Lingyuan Temple. Sensibly, she had chosen a mountain behind the temple to carry out their plan, rather than in her own abbey. The maids bravely confessed that they were instructed by Yue Jingting and Xiao Wei to push Xiao Xian off the mountains. Auntie Hua chose to withhold the remaining details, in an attempt to preserve some dignity for Yue Jingting and Xiao Wei. However, everyone present was well aware that the maids wouldn't have taken such action without orders from their respective mistresses. Ms. Fong grew increasingly agitated, her gaze filled with disdain as she directed it towards Madam Chiao and Ms. Mi Jr. she sneered. Madam Qiao, you better keep a close eye on your daughter and leave my daughter-in-law alone. She is wicked and malicious to the core. Perhaps she will spend the rest of her life in loneliness. What's the matter? Can't accept the truth? Ms. Fang retorted, delivering a verbal blow that left Qiao Wei and Madam Qiao feeling utterly exposed and scorched by shame. Ms. Fang's blame was directed towards Madam Qiao and Qiao Wei, but Yue Jingting felt deeply humiliated by the accusations. Unable to contain her anger, she snapped back. It was all Qiao Wei's idea. I only helped because I thought we were friends. I have nothing to do with this. You can put all the blame on her. After all, we're talking about her own sister here. Mother, one want to go home now. Qiao Wei was stunned, her eyes filled with disbelief as she stared at Yue Jingting. It was you. Madam Qiao swiftly intervened, interrupting Qiao Wei and restraining her own overwhelming frustration. She spoke with a dark tone. Qiao Wei has always been shielded under my protection. She is too innocent to be aware of any of this. Chapter 794, Blaming. But she is not out to do anything evil, like setting up sisters. It must have been the maid who persuaded her to do so. The maid grew up with her miss, and her miss adores her deeply. She even tried to turn me against her a few days ago, so I lectured Wei. I thought she had changed herself, but apparently, she came up with a new idea like this. I will definitely punish her now. How terrible. Xian. Madam Qiao tried to present herself as friendly. You are a very kind-hearted and understanding girl, and you barely need our care. Your sister is misguided, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive her. Qiao Wei clenched her hand tightly, feeling the stinging pain. She bit her lip, consumed by distress. Since when did she have to beg Qiao Xian for forgiveness? Qiao Wei's heart ached, overwhelmed by the sheer humiliation of the situation. She couldn't comprehend what was happening. Was it all just a terrible dream? This person, who didn't even dare meet her gaze and whom she could lecture and strike as she pleased, was now someone she had to plead for forgiveness from? Qiao Xian was being defended and protected, and even her mother felt the need to bow to her. Tears welled up in Qiao Wei's eyes, cascading down her cheeks uncontrollably. She felt a rush of humiliation and hastily wiped them away, trying to conceal her vulnerability. Concerned, Madam Qiao interjected. Xian, your sister is crying because she feels remorse. But she wasn't. Her tears were born out of anger. The blades of humiliation struck Qiao Wei's heart, causing her face to flush with heat. The amalgamation of anger, humiliation, sadness, and embarrassment became unbearable. Overwhelmed, she sought solace in Madam Qiao's embrace, her sobs echoing with pain. Madam Qiao comforted her, secretly berating Qiao Xian in her thoughts. What a despicable person. First Madam had watched everything impassively. Ms. Mi Jr. shifted the blame onto her maid. The two maids stood pale and trembling, afraid to utter a single word in their defense. Their lives were at the mercy of their mistresses, and any opposition could cost them dearly. But for young maids, they might even suffer a lot before they die. Qiao Xian chimed in. Aunt, now that we have identified the culprits, please make a decision. It was the maids who coerced them. As long as Yue Jingting and Qiao Wei insisted that the maids acted of their own volition, no one would have concrete evidence to prove otherwise, although everyone was well aware of the truth. First Madam could certainly pressure the maids to reveal the true mastermind, but Qiao Xian didn't want that to happen. She and the Qiao family could part ways. However, First Madam didn't have to sever ties with the extended family for the sake of an outsider like Qiao Xian. If news of the incident spread, it would cast her in a negative light, implying she was petty. After all, she was unharmed, wasn't she? Qiao Wei and Yue Jingting had already suffered reputational damage, which was worse than Qiao Xian's situation. People tend to sympathize with those who have endured greater suffering, sadly reflecting the nature of society. As the wife of the provincial champion, Xiao Yunduan had a promising future. Qiao Xian hadn't sustained any serious injuries or even been frightened, so she could gracefully withdraw and preserve her good reputation. That would be preferable, wouldn't it? Qiao Xian's words implicitly confirmed her agreement to hold the maids responsible. First Madam comprehended her intention and couldn't help but inwardly sigh. This child was truly perceptive. Sister-in-law Lear is Ting's maid. Do you believe Ting should also bear some responsibility? Chapter 795, Compensation Ms. Mi Jr. gritted her teeth. Yes. Then how do you plan to make amends? Ms. Mi Jr.'s eyes widened. Another compensation? She had already sacrificed 10,000 liang. And now she was being asked for more? B0x. Calm First Madam spoke up. Xian was fortunate not to encounter any harm. However, the maids did attempt to harm her. If something had actually happened, do you think a mere maid would have sufficed to resolve the matter? Xian is the wife of the provincial champion, and provincial champion Xiao happens to be a close friend of young Master Xie, who is aguist of the Xie family. She was implying that if something had truly befallen Xiao Xian, Xiao Yunduan might turn to the influential Xie family, who could delve deeper into the situation and involve more individuals than just the maid. After Xiao Yunduan became the provincial champion, Xie Jingrong had proudly publicized their friendship. Xiao Yunduan even received an invitation to visit the esteemed Xie family. The Xie family highly valued their association with a provincial champion, and Xie Jingrong had always spoken highly of him. Under the weight of First Madam's influence, Ms. Mi Jr. quickly retreated. Elle will compensate Mrs. Xiao with 5,000 liang for the trouble she encountered. Only 5,000? What about 8,000? Just 8,000? 10,000 then? Isn't that enough? Is a mere 10,000 enough for attempted murder? Ms. Mi Jr.'s fury intensified, causing her heart to ache. Then state the amount. 50,000 liang. What? First Madam stated the sum calmly, nearly choking Ms. Mi Jr. with the weight of it. Madame Qiao and her daughters were all taken aback, stunned by the staggering figure. Qiao Wei felt tears welling up, unable to comprehend the magnitude of 50,000 liang. Qiao Kou's eyes darted to Qiao Xian, a mix of jealousy and envy coursing through her. 50,000 liang? That was an exorbitant sum. While they might not be able to afford such an amount, the compensation would certainly be substantial. How fortunate was this detestable woman to receive such staunch defense from First Madam. Though the Yuezheng family possessed wealth, Ms. Mi Jr. herself had limited resources. She sneered. Why not just rob me outright, elder sister-in-law? First Madam inwardly responded. Yes, I am essentially robbing you. So what? I've already told you, Xian is the wife of the provincial champion. She was not some obscure figure. She held the esteemed title of the provincial champion's wife. Her young husband had achieved the remarkable feat of becoming a provincial champion in his very first attempt at the examination. An incredibly rare accomplishment. He possessed a bright and promising future. However, her husband would never tolerate his wife being framed and almost killed by someone from the Yuezheng family. Unless they offered the most sincere apology and took into consideration the implications for First Madam and Yuezheng Xiao, they would not let this matter go. Ms. Mi Jr. found herself at a loss for words, growing increasingly irritated. But I don't have that much cash. That is not my concern. In the end, Ms. Mi Jr. had no choice but to reluctantly agree to provide the cash to Qiao Xian within 3 days. First Madam added, "You must also offer a formal apology." What? Ms. Mi Jr. exclaimed. Elder sister-in-law, this is going too far. First Madam shot her a cold glance. You made a mistake, and yet you are unwilling to apologize? Either you or Ting will suffice. Yuezheng Ting had already been silenced by fear. She dared not make a move or defend herself, keeping her head lowered as if oblivious to the proceedings. Elder Aunt was the person she feared the most. Elder Aunt had always disregarded petty matters. She paid no attention to their minor schemes and deceit. However, when she set her mind to something, no one could surpass her. Yuezheng Ting had been well aware of this for quite some time, but she was unwilling to apologize to Qiao Xian. It was utterly humiliating. She was a young girl who cherished her reputation and dignity. She couldn't bear the thought of losing face. Chapter 796, Ceasing MS. Mi Jr. had a multitude of angry retorts on the tip of her tongue, but when First Madam emphasized Qiao Xian's status as the provincial champion's wife, she found herself unable to utter another word. Feeling conflicted and not wanting her daughter to bear any more pain, Ms. Ni Jr. reluctantly offered her apology. Qiao Xian was already quite content with the outcome. Without First Madam's intervention, she wouldn't have achieved such a favorable resolution. First Madam had pushed Ms. Mi Jr. to her limits, ensuring that she didn't harbor any ill feelings over the matter. Simultaneously, she did not want First Madam to become entangled in her own predicament. Qiao Xian graciously accepted the apology, and with that, the incident came to an end. B0x. Calm First Madam stated that if a similar incident were to occur in the future, they should report the entire matter to the appropriate governmental authorities. She felt too ashamed to continue serving as the mediator. These words weighed heavily on Nis. Mi Jr. and Yue Jingting's hearts. They were pained, yet startled as well. Once Ms. Mi Jr. had settled, it was Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei's turn to address the situation. First Madam gazed up at Madame Qiao, causing her to tremble involuntarily. She forced a smile. We will discuss this further when we return home. I apologize for the inconvenience, First Madam. She insinuated that the matter was their own affair, and there was no need for First Madam to interfere. First Madam and Qiao Xian shared a good relationship, and she was not easily swayed by Madame Qiao's words. Furthermore, Ms. Fong was on their side as well. Ms. Fong strongly disagreed with the suggestion. I'll disagree, Madam-in-law. Even brothers settle matters fairly. Elder Miss Qiao's maid nearly killed my daughter-in-law, and I implore First Madam to arbitrate. She is known for her fairness, so please, First Madam, be the judge. A smile played on First Madam's lips. Thank you for your support, Sister Fong. I won't allow Xian to suffer just to defend herself. Moreover, both maids were involved in the same scheme, so they should face equal punishment. It's a simple matter, and I can act as the witness. Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei were taken aback. They were on the verge of exploding in anger. Madame Qiao would never admit that the maid was the mastermind. Even Ms. Mi Jr. didn't blame her own maid. So now, Madame Qiao was expected to apologize to Qiao Xian and pay her 50,000 liang? It was simply outrageous. Madame Qiao tightly grasped Qiao Wei's hands, urging her to remain silent. She spoke in a low voice, filled with regret. Xian, you were the victim in this incident, and I apologize for our actions. But we are sisters, let's put an end to this. Qiao Xian responded, her tone firm. I am the daughter-in-law of the Xiao family and the wife of the provincial champion. I accept your apology. However, when will you provide me with the 50,000 liang? One believe in treating everyone equally, don't you? Qiao Wei couldn't contain her disdain any longer and sneered. You have the audacity to ask for 50,000 liang. In her eyes, this woman wasn't even worth 50,000 liang as a human being. Ms. Mi Jr. sneered as well, but she had no intention of staying any longer. Moreover, with outsiders present, Madame Qiao would not be able to display her influence effectively. So she decided to leave with Yue Jingting, and requested First Madam to accompany them. First Madam turned her attention to Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian exchanged a glance with her, nodding to indicate that it was fine. First Madam departed with Ms. Mi Jr. and Yue Jingting, creating a sense of relief in the room. With their departure, Madame Qiao, Qiao Wei, and Qiao Ko let out a collective sigh, finally feeling a sense of relaxation. Qiao Wei abandoned her pretense and locked her gaze onto Qiao Xian, sneering disdainfully. Who do you think you are? The daughter of a lowly concubine. You are not even worth the position of a maid in front of my mother and me. What gives you the audacity to demand apologies and compensation from us? 50,000 liang? Do you truly have the nerve to ask for such a sum? Chapter 797 Apology Bang. A loud noise resonated through the room as Ms. Fong slammed her hand on the table, causing the teacup to wobble, and creating a startle for Madame Qiao and her daughter. Elder Miss Qiao, you are truly despicable. How dare you? Why not? Emph. You should address me as your sister-in-law's mother. How dare you insult someone by calling them a low-class maid? I will inform my son and have him confront your father about this matter. You cannot bully people like this. Xiao Xian felt a warm surge of reassurance flowing through her heart. She gently held onto Ms. Fang's arm and whispered, "Mother, please calm down." B0X. Calm. Ms. Fang was genuinely furious. She sneered. They believe they are superior to us. Well then, let's inform Yunduan and have him defend us. Mrs.-in-law, we are family, and we can resolve this through discussion. Madame Qiao interjected, feeling a mix of anger and anxiety. She couldn't allow Ms. Fang to leave like this. If Xiao Yunduan were to learn about the situation and inform the old master, Xiao Wei would undoubtedly face severe consequences. Wei, apologize. Mom. Apologize now. Madame Qiao's voice snapped with authority. Xiao Wei clenched her lips tightly, unwilling to comply. Xiao Xian let out a disdainful snort and spoke calmly. Mother, don't force your sister to do something against her will. I am accustomed to receiving apologies. But I am curious, when will you be returning the 50,000 liang to me? Ms. Fang sneered in agreement. Not a single penny less. Otherwise, I will have my son inquire about this with Officer Qiao. Madame Qiao's face contorted in frustration. Xiao Xian, are you really going this far? Your father is returning to the capital soon, and Xiao Yunduan will be taking the examination there. He is a stranger in that city, and aren't you considering the assistance your father could provide? Xiao Xian sneered back. These are separate matters. Are you attempting to threaten me, mother? Besides, as far as I know, my husband's examination will take place before father can even secure a transfer back to the capital. How would this so-called help work? You will be going back to the capital with your husband, won't you? And because of your interference, I wonder if you will bring trouble or aid to my husband. Yes. Ms. Fang interjected sharply. Stop with the sweet talk and pay us what is owed. Ms. Fang hesitated for a moment upon hearing Madame Qiao's words, but as she listened further, she realized that Xiao Xian was correct in her assessment of Madame Qiao. Madame Qiao was not concerned about her son's well-being. She was instead causing him trouble. Madame Qiao grew increasingly annoyed and responded bluntly, We don't have 50,000 liang at home. If you want it, go ask your father yourself. In that case, I will do just that, Xiao Xian sneered. And I will also ask Elder Aunt to document today's events so I can present it to my father. He shouldn't assume I am lying and let others distort the truth. Madame Qiao trembled with fury, her eyes filled with icy anger. Miss Qiao, don't worry. Duan will help you. My daughter-in-law will never be bullied, not even by her own mother's family. Bah! Don't underestimate us. Ms. Fang reassured Xiao Xian while pulling her away. Let's stop wasting our time with them. They are nothing but irritants to me. Madame Qiao. After Xiao Xian departed with her mother-in-law, Madame Qiao, in a fit of anger, grabbed the teacups and hurled them at Xiao Ko, cursing. Useless thing. Your sister is honest and straightforward, and I entrusted her to your care. Why do you always fail at everything? Chapter 798. Jealousy. Xiao Ko trembled on her knees. Mother, it's my fault. Enough. No more tears. Madame Qiao snapped, silencing her daughter. Xiao Ko bit her lips, desperately trying to hold back her tears, but they continued to stream down her face. She couldn't control Xiao Wei or stop her from doing as she pleased. If she had the power to do so, it would be a different story altogether. But she was bound by the control her lineal mother had over her life. No matter how much pain she felt, she had to suppress it deep within. She couldn't even defend herself in front of her own father. B0X. Calm as she thought about Xiao Xian, her emotions welled up. Xiao Xian had endured far worse circumstances than she had. Yet she had managed to rise above it all. She was now surrounded by people who protected and supported her. And her husband was a provincial champion. Jealousy consumed Xiao Ko's heart. With a resolute determination, she made up her mind to steal Xiao Wei's marriage. Mom, do we really have to give that wretched woman 50,000 liang? No, never. She doesn't deserve a single thing. Xiao Ko declared vehemently, her eyes filled with envy and resentment. Enough. Madame Qiao restrained herself from slapping Xiao Ko, but her voice was cold and cutting. Shame on you. You've messed up everything. Xiao Wei interjected, feeling uneasy. Elle didn't expect this. Yue Jingting came up with the idea. She promised it would work, but how could I have known she'd be so useless? Madame Qiao closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Opening her eyes, she spoke slowly. Join me to the Xiao family today. Qiao Wei's expression changed. Why? To apologize, of course. Madame Qiao replied firmly. Listen carefully now. You must seek Qiao Xian's forgiveness, no matter what it takes. This way, she will never bring up the issue of compensation again. Mother. Xiao Wei was both surprised and furious. Are you asking me to bow down to Qiao Xian? Yes. Madame Qiao didn't care about her daughter's mood anymore. She sneered. It's time for you to develop your own character. Use Qiao Xian as a means to strengthen yourself. I'm doing this for your own good, so don't overlook the opportunity. Xiao Wei. Getting herself humiliated by Qiao Xian for her own good? Xiao Wei was disappointed and saddened. Even her mother was treating her like this? Madame Qiao felt tired and annoyed, lectured her a few more sentences before bringing them back to the hostel. Back at the hostel, Concubine Du saw Madame Qiao and Elder Miss dark faces and the weird atmosphere around them, and she was very cautious as she served them. Back in Xiao Kou's room, Concubine Du asked what was going on. Xiao Kou was shedding tears, but she could not utter a word. She did not tell Concubine Du what was going on, nor did she throw herself into her mother's arms. She was no longer this weak anymore. She knew clearly that Concubine Du could not give her any consolation, nor could she obtain justice for her. She could not even keep her own private money. What happened? Ko, don't frighten me, tell me now. Concubine Du's constant questions made Xiao Kou impatient. She wiped the tears and recounted the whole thing. Concubine Du got anxious. Why did you offend Xiao Xian anyway? Chapter 799. Not my idea. Elle told you not to offend Xiao Xian anymore. She is not part of the Qiao family, and she won't give you any barriers. She is provincial champion's wife, and offending her doesn't help you. You know, life is unpredictable. We never could have imagined that Xiao Xian would rise to such prominence. It's important not to antagonize her. Who knows, if Xiao Yunduan secures a position in the governmental office, you being her sister might come in handy. You may find yourself in need of her support one day. Concubine Du sighed. Xiao Kou snorted and threw a disdainful look at Concubine Du B0X. Calm. This woman knew nothing, but kept talking about how to depend on others. What was the point? You think it had been my intention? Yeah. Madame Qiao and Xiao Wei told me to follow the order. And what else could I do to object to that? Concubine Du was at a loss for words, feeling the weight of Xiao Kou's predicament. She knew that going against the orders of Madame Qiao and Xiao Wei was not an option for Xiao Kou. They were both stubborn and difficult to sway, making it challenging to please them. Frustration welled up within Concubine Du, and she clenched her teeth in anger. This life is truly unbearable. Once we return to the capital, I will find a way to secure a good match for you, so you can get married. Xiao Kou glanced at her, her expression filled with a mixture of skepticism and resignation. She no longer believed in Concubine Du's promises, or held any high expectations. She had experienced disappointment before, and she was determined not to let herself be disappointed again. There was little trust left between them, and Xiao Kou knew she had to rely on herself to navigate the challenges that lay ahead. She was determined to find a suitable suitor on her own. She didn't need Concubine Du's assistance. The constant nagging from Concubine Du became background noise to Xiao Kou, as if mosquitoes were buzzing in her ears. Claiming exhaustion, she declared her need for sleep and managed to silence Concubine Du's prattling. The next day, Madame Qiao and Xiao M/EI left to make the apology, leaving Concubine Du and Xiao Kou behind. It was evident that Madame Qiao didn't want them present for Qiao Wei's humbling encounter with Xiao Xian. Meanwhile, Xiao Yunduan was at home. Madame Qiao took the opportunity to remind everyone of the Qiao family's noble status in the capital, and their past service to the emperor. She emphasized their valuable connections, including Qiao Wei's engagement to a duke's mansion. Madame Qiao expressed her intention to support Xiao Yunduan once he was in the capital, leveraging their influence to help him progress. She proposed that they put the past behind them, forgive each other, and continue socializing as before. Xiao Yunduan firmly rejected Madame Qiao's offer. "I have my own plans, Madame Qiao. You don't need to worry about me. My wife cannot be bullied like this." Madame Qiao sneered, ready to mock Xiao Yunduan's naivety. Without influential connections in the capital, a poor scholar like him would never succeed. It would take him decades to achieve even a minor position, perhaps becoming a low-ranking officer in the Imperial Academy if luck was on his side. However, she realized it was not the appropriate time to voice her doubts. Qiao Wei was unwilling and filled with remorse. She didn't want to be here apologizing. This infuriated Ms. Fong, who couldn't contain her frustration and lashed out at Qiao Wei, pushing her to the brink of explosion. Madame Qiao, anxious and angry, intervened and insisted that Qiao Wei make the apology. The whole situation felt like a farce, a meaningless charade. In the end, Madame Qiao promised to provide immediate compensation of 10,000 liang, with the remaining 4 to be repaid in the future. Chapter 800. No choice, however. The IOU note had to be written in Xiao Xian's handwriting. The note detailed the events of the previous day and explained the debt owed. Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei also left their fingerprints on the note as a sign of acknowledgement. Madame Qiao reluctantly agreed, fully aware that the note served as a bargaining chip in Xiao Xian's possession. Neither party expected the debt to be repaid, nor did they anticipate Xiao Xian to inquire about it. Madame Qiao had no choice but to accept the terms. In exchange, Xiao Xian promised not to tell the incident not be reported to the old master. B0x. Madame Qiao reluctantly agreed, with the condition that the money would be provided to Xiao Xian within 3 days after their return to the county. However, Madame Qiao only had 1,000 liang in cash. She had no alternative but to comply, understanding that if the old master were to find out, Qiao Wei would face punishment, and the old master would be deeply disappointed in her. She had maintained her reputation as a virtuous wife throughout her entire life, and she couldn't afford to tarnish it now, especially in the eyes of the old master. Her only hope was that her son would attain a high-ranking position, and her daughter would become capable and accomplished. Only then would she have nothing to fear. However, she knew that such a day had not yet arrived. If the old master harbored any resentment towards her, her life would be miserable upon their return to the capital. The risk was too great to take. Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei were infuriated as they left Xiao Xian's residence. Upon their return to the hostel, Qiao Ko received further punishment in the form of slaps to her face. From that day forward, Madame Qiao never visited Xiao Xian again. However, she did encounter Ms. Mi Jr. once more, and after 2 days had passed, they all returned to the county. Qiao Wei would have normally confided in her father about the incident, but this time she remained silent. Madame Qiao warned her sternly, emphasizing the importance of keeping everything a secret, regardless of her doubts or dissatisfaction. Madame Qiao couldn't disclose the truth about whether or not Xiao Xian had helped. She also mentioned that the first madam had never been kind to Xiao Xian anyway. Furthermore, she added that the family was difficult to befriend due to their arrogance. Officer Qiao believed his wife's words and felt regretful about the situation. But he chose not to inquire further. At the Yuezheng family's residence, Ms. Mi Jr. was unable and unwilling to pay the 50,000 liang in cash. Even if she had the means, she refused to do so. Consequently, she decided to discuss the matter with her husband. Ms. Mi Jr. selectively withheld the truth, only sharing the part of the story that could benefit her. Upon hearing about the 50,000 liang demand, the second old master became furious. He exclaimed that they were being utterly bullied. How could they rob their own family like this? They were all part of the same family, and such mistreatment was unacceptable. The second old master's anger reached a boiling point, and he even contemplated confronting the first madam along with Ms. Mi Jr. Typically, the second old master refrained from involving himself in family matters. He knew that he couldn't compete with the influential first section of the family, so he preferred to maintain silence. However, seeing his sons doing well gave him some consolation. Yet, it didn't mean that the first section of the family could exploit them as they pleased. Startled by her husband's reaction, Ms. Mi Jr. quickly intervened. What she truly needed was for her husband to assist her in covering the debt, not to create further trouble by confronting the first madam. Fearful of the consequences, Ms. Mi Jr. was reluctant to allow the second old master to confront the first madam, knowing that it would put her at a disadvantage. To avoid worsening the situation, Ms. Mi Jr. decided to adopt a more amicable approach. She attempted to convince the second old master not to pursue the matter any further. Although the second old master was taken aback by this unexpected change in attitude, he restrained himself from escalating the conflict with the first madam. Chapter 801. Bad luck. Fueled by anger and a sense of injustice, the second old master couldn't simply let the matter go. The amount in question was 50,000 liang, not a trivial sum of 5,000. After contemplating the situation, he decided to approach his own mother, Madame Yuezheng, seeking her support and assistance. Surely, Madame Yuezheng, being the matriarch of the family, would be able to help them. To gain Madame Yuezheng's sympathy, the second old master embellished the story, presenting it in a way that painted their family as victims of undue oppression. His intention was to provoke a strong reaction from Madame Yuezheng, hoping that she would stand up for them. Madame Yuezheng, who held a deep admiration for her second son's family, was well aware of their intelligence and capabilities. However, she couldn't deny that her elder son's family was competent. Furthermore, she couldn't muster much interest or concern when it came to her second son's lack of a male heir. As a result, she wasn't always inclined to defend them in every situation. B0x. However, Madame Yuezheng found her elder son's wife's demands excessive. Wanting to extract 50,000 liang from the second section of the family seemed unjustifiably high. With a sense of urgency, Madame Yuezheng summoned both the first madam and Ms. Mi Jr. to her presence. Ms. Mi Jr. was filled with bitter frustration, never expecting that her husband would take such actions behind her back. The first madam proceeded to share the entire story, recounting how Yuezheng Ting had made an attempt on the life of the provincial champion's wife. Given the close relationship between the Xie family and the provincial champion Xiao, with the Xie family considering him an honored guest and having a strong bond with their young master, it was highly unlikely that provincial champion Xiao would forgive them without a substantial compensation of 50,000 liang. Understanding the Xie family's influence and the importance of maintaining their connection, Madame Yuezheng contemplated whether Yuezheng Ting deserved severe punishment for her actions. Ms. Mi Jr. found herself in a difficult position, unable to defend her actions, but weakly attempting to explain that it was the fault of a maid. Madame Yuezheng and the second old master were both taken aback by the revelations. The second old master's anger intensified as he glared at Ms. Mi Jr. Why didn't you inform me of this earlier? This is not what you told me. Look at the mess you've created. Madame Yuezheng's brow furrowed. That is your own fault. You should be capable enough to relay a story accurately, shouldn't you? As a united family, there was no need for them to hide the truth. It was common knowledge that the maid acted under the instructions of Yuezheng Ting. Everyone was aware of this fact. Ms. Mi Jr. had no ground to argue. However, she found the demanded compensation excessive. She bitterly complained. Ting made a mistake. It was all because of Elder Miss Qiao's influence. Elder Miss Qiao wanted to punish her sister out of jealousy for her better life, but Ting got dragged into it. I will tell Ting to cut ties with her. But mother, I don't have 50,000 liang. The second old master sneered. You can gather the cash yourself. I won't be able to help you. With those words, the second old master stormed off in anger, leaving Ms. Mi Jr. shocked and at a loss. He just left like that? What was she supposed to do now? Mother. Ms. Mi Jr. turned to Madame Yuezheng, tears welling up in her eyes. Madame Yuezheng frowned. She couldn't simply let it go. Nor could she expect her elder son's wife to provide the funds. That was out of the question. Moreover, she believed that Ms. Mi Jr. deserved to be punished. While it was possible that Elder Miss Qiao held a grudge against her sister, it didn't necessarily mean that Yuezheng Ting had no involvement. Perhaps Ms. Mi Jr. was also implicated in some way. Madame Yuezheng had no interest in delving into the matter with Ms. Mi Jr. She understood everything implicitly. Chapter 802. Compensation. Elle will pay 30,000 liang for you, and you will take care of the rest. Madame Yuezheng, having considerable wealth, instructed her servant to bring 30,000 liang in cash, and handed it directly to First Madame. First Madame had no objections to this arrangement. Madame Yuezheng had her own personal funds, and she was free to allocate them as she pleased, as long as she wasn't forced to dip into the shared savings of the family. The first section of the family did not require Madame Yuezheng's assistance in this manner. B0x. Calm second sister-in-law, should I have my people collect the remaining amount now or tomorrow? Asked First Madame, indicating that they would retrieve the money the following day. Ms. Mi Jr. became infuriated and responded bitterly. I will send my people to deliver it to you, elder sister-in-law. Very well. I will be waiting. Bah. Ms. Mi Jr. had 20,000 liang in cash, but it was a substantial portion of her personal savings. Reluctantly, she gathered the cash and requested Auntie Ling to arrange for its prompt delivery. She wanted to put this matter behind her as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, First Madame added some exquisite brocades that her son had gifted to her the previous year, along with a set of beautiful ornaments, to the presents she was taking to the Xiao family. She personally headed there to deliver the gifts. Xiao Xian had no intention of accepting First Madame's presents, but she insisted with a smile, saying, I am your aunt, and this is a gesture to help you feel more at ease. I have plenty of these items stored away. Xiao Xian smiled appreciatively and accepted all the gifts. First Madame engaged in small talk with Xiao Xian for a while before advising, you should discuss the management of your lands with the estate manager, so they can take care of them in your absence. It's time for you to return home as soon as possible. Xiao will handle everything else for you. When you visit next time, you can evaluate and select any preferred managers and page boys to keep here. Perceiving Xiao Xian's confusion, First Madame responded with a sigh and a smile. Ting and your sister found themselves in a compromising situation with two men in broad daylight. Just wait and see, the rumor mill will undoubtedly spread. People will mock us, and they won't know how to handle it. I have always been the one to clean up their messes, but this time I'm staying out of it. It's a lesson they need to learn from. That's why it's best for you to leave soon and distance yourself from this situation. First Madame had no daughters who needed to secure marriage alliances, and her granddaughter was still too young to worry about such matters. Furthermore, the two branches of the family were distinct entities. People wouldn't be foolish enough to hold the first section of the family accountable for the misdeeds of the second section. If anyone dared to think otherwise, the first section of the family would simply disregard them. Xiao Xian suddenly grasped the underlying dynamics. Indeed, she was tangentially involved, and staying here for too long would only invite unnecessary trouble upon herself. Realizing that it was in her best interest to distance herself from the situation, Xiao Xian expressed her gratitude to First Madame. Aunt, I sincerely thank you for reminding me. I almost overlooked that aspect. We will make the necessary preparations and leave in 2 days' time. That's good, and Chushan will accompany you on the journey back home. Thank you so much, Aunt. First Madame smiled warmly. It's nothing, really. Xiao Xian shared the news with the rest of her family, and they all agreed with the decision. They had experienced and witnessed enough during their stay, and it was time to return home. They reassured themselves that they could always come back in the future. Eldest uncle, in particular, had been longing for home for quite some time. Although he faced opposition from his wife, he couldn't hide his joy as they embarked on the journey back home. Chapter 803. Valuable with their departure imminent, they swiftly made preparations. The excessive amount of purchases they made resulted in a substantial amount of luggage to carry. Xiao Sanling and Yang Xiaoni, in particular, had bought an abundance of food, resembling two squirrels with their stash. Xiao Xian, too, had numerous food ingredients, a third of which she discreetly stored in her spatial storage. Among them were various dried seafood items, unknown to those around her. This strategy allowed them to save the trouble of carrying too many things back home. Regarding the fields, Yuezhing Xiao's manager had taken care of all the necessary arrangements on Xiao Xian's behalf. All she needed to do was inform the housekeeper of the tasks to be carried out, ensuring everything proceeded according to plan. B0x. Come as long as Yuezhing Xiao was present, the manager would not dare deceive anyone. With everything settled and their luggage packed, they prepared to depart the following day. Xiao Yunduan bid farewell to Xie Jingrong at the Xie family before returning. In his hands, he carried a pot of orchids as a parting gift. Xiao Xian was taken aback by the Xie family's generosity upon realizing that the orchids they had gifted were of the highest quality. Xiao Yunduan explained the situation, saying, "The Xie family mentioned that this silver ink orchid is dying, and their florist couldn't revive it. They asked if we could save it." Xiao Yunduan didn't consider themselves particularly skilled at planting. At least he didn't think so. Weren't they just planting the same things as other families? Perhaps it was the quality of the soil that made everything flourish. However, since the orchid appeared to be on the verge of dying and he felt sorry for it, he hesitantly brought it home. Xiao Yunduan decided to find a suitable pot to replant the orchid, and placed it near the spring in Xiao Xian's garden. The spring's water could moisten the grass and trees, offering a chance for the flower to be saved. Curious, Xiao Xian inquired, "Is this silver ink orchid very valuable?" Xiao Yunduan nodded and replied, "It's worth a fortune, equivalent to a significant amount of gold. It's the only one in the entire Xie family." Xiao Xian gasped. The Xie family gave it to them directly rather than try to save it? Typically, most people would try to save a plant as long as there was even the slightest chance of survival, especially when it was a rare specimen. Xiao Xian gratefully accepted the orchid and said with a smile, "Darling, you may not know, but let me take care of it from now on." She intended to use her special abilities to help the orchid thrive, little by little. Xiao Yunduan didn't object and reassured her with a smile, "Just take it easy and don't feel pressured." "But if it does manage to survive," Xiao Yunduan paused for a moment and suggested, "should we consider returning it to the Xie family?" Xiao Xian had no objections. She smiled and nodded, saying, "Of course. Our soil is fertile, and it might truly thrive here." With that in mind, she planned to cultivate a new shoot from the orchid, and then transfer it to her personal space for further nurturing. The orchids in her personal space were flourishing, producing small shoots that could potentially be brought out and sold for a significant profit once they arrived in the capital. Since valuable items were typically expensive, it was best not to have a large quantity of them. However, Xiao Xian could consider taking a few more orchids with her if she desired. Orchids thrived exceptionally well in her personal space. Carrying the precious orchid with her, Xiao Xian and her family embarked on their journey back home the next morning. Chapter 804. Accompany the family returned home one day before Madame Qiao and her entourage did, and the once cold house became lively once again. Although Xiao Dalong and Ms. Su were not present, they were not forgotten. They received numerous gifts from Ms. Fang, including materials for clothes, needlework supplies, and food and clothing for the children. Xiao Xian and Yang Xiaoni also prepared presents for Ms. Su. Yang Xiaoni gave her a variety of pastries, nuts, and snacks, while Xiao Xian gifted her a set of cosmetics and a pair of beautiful gold hairpins. Tao Tao also contributed by giving her a set of threads and needles. Ms. Su was overjoyed to receive these gifts. Upon their return, Xiao Yunduan went to check on the progress of the school construction. B0x. Com, the land officer, and elderly men from the clan were overseeing the construction, and everything was going well. The entire village was pleased to offer their assistance, making it a collaborative effort. Each household actively participated in the work. The school was expected to be completed within 10 to 20 days. Following that, there would be the installation of furniture, hiring of teachers, and all other necessary arrangements. Everything was proceeding smoothly. Lixia and Lichia were fully occupied with making lipsticks. They would create a set whenever a flower bloomed. As the rose flowers gradually diminished, There were fewer osmanthus and chrysanthemums available for making lipsticks. In about 2 weeks, the lipstick production would be temporarily halted. Xiao Xian mentioned that she could provide another set of around 1,000 lipsticks to Yuezheng Xiao in the coming days. Additionally, she planned to deliver a batch of snow fungus and mushrooms before the new year. Furthermore, Xiao Xian contemplated hiring people to cultivate the field adjacent to the flower land she intended to purchase. This expansion would allow villagers to sell, rent, and exchange the land. She had no intentions of allocating more space for lipstick production, as their current position was already advantageous. Considering their position in the village, this plan should be straightforward. It was evident that if the flower field expanded, her sisters-in-law and maids would not have enough spare hands to manage it. Therefore, Xiao Xian contemplated selecting a few intelligent and dependable girls to assist them. There was no need for Xiao Xian to keep the flower field a secret anymore. She could now hire people from the village to plant flower seeds, remove grass, trim and extract honey. Her family was strong enough to protect their own lipstick property. Xiao Xian shared this idea with Xiao Yunduan, who wholeheartedly agreed. "Let's make all the arrangements before the new year," he suggested. "After the new year, I will be heading to the capital for the examination, and one hope you can accompany me." Xiao Yunduan had grown accustomed to having Xiao Xian by his side. It wasn't just about taking care of him, but also providing him with a sense of security. The couple spent their time talking, strolling, and exploring. They enjoyed going sightseeing and shopping together. Xiao Yunduan was overjoyed to see Xiao Xian searching for various ingredients and picking out small items, as well as visiting bookstores with him. The thought of going to the capital alone and being separated from her was unbearable for him. Xiao Xian also had her own intentions. She wanted to prevent him from being swayed by others as a son-in-law. She wanted to see if he would remain devoted to her after achieving success. However, this was a natural expectation, a quiet waiting and companionship, rather than intentional tests. Chapter 805. Not test. It wasn't a test, it was giving him a hard time. But presenting her own plan and hearing his proposal were two separate matters. Xiao Xian felt her heart fill with sweetness as she listened to him. She smiled brightly and replied, "Yes, dealing with this matter won't be difficult at all. Third sister-in-law, Tao Tao Chunyu, and the other girls are skilled at making lipsticks. They can handle the entire task without any problem." Dealing with cassavas was much easier. They only needed to plant them, remove weeds during the harvest, and dry them in the sun before informing Yuezheng Xiao to have them collected. In Zhang village, manager Dong and his page boys decided to stay there. Xiao Xian trusted Ding Erzhu and his family to take care of the lands, tea leaves, and creeping figs. Business and lands in the province were easier to manage. The Yuezheng B0XO Com family was providing assistance, so she didn't need to worry about anything. Xiao Xian continued discussing her arrangements, which uplifted Xiao Yunduan's spirits. His wife had planned everything. She wanted to go to the capital with him. How wonderful! We can leave much earlier, well ahead of time. There's no need to rush, so we won't get tired. Darling, do you get seasick? We can rent a large ship and travel by sea. Xiao Lulang also paid a visit to Xiao Yunduan upon hearing of his return. He requested to borrow the study materials that Xiao Yunduan used when he was preparing to become a cultivated talent. Xiao Yunduan had always kept the materials in good order and well maintained. Initially, he had planned to keep them as souvenirs, but if Xiao Lulang wanted to borrow them, he was generous enough to share them. The only condition was that Xiao Lulang took good care of them and returned them when he was finished. Xiao Lulang nodded and agreed, even expressing his gratitude before leaving. Miss Fong was taken aback by Xiao Lulang's reaction. She had expected him to cause a fuss. "Yunduan, what's going on with Lulang? He's acting so strangely," she exclaimed. Xiao Xian couldn't help but suppress her laughter. Eldest uncle wasn't pleased with the comment. "What do you mean? Lulang has made a decision to study hard. What's wrong with that?" "It's a good thing," he said, surprised and pleased by his nephew's behavior. Lulang was incredibly intelligent, and if he applied himself, he would surely succeed in the imperial examination as well. The Xiao family would have 2 advanced scholars and recommended men. Ms. Fong rolled her eyes and had no interest in arguing with him. She couldn't shake off the feeling that Xiao Lulang's behavior was unusual. Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian exchanged a glance, sensing the same sentiment as Ms. Fong. "It's all right, Mom. I believe my cousin must have thought it through. If he wants to work hard, it's a positive thing," Xiao Yunduan reassured her. "Really? Don't worry, Mom. Yes, you're right. It's good to have you here. You're just biased against him. How can you think that way? I have my reasons based on what he has said before. What's wrong with being cautious? You shouldn't be like this. Let's wait and see. The fox may grow gray, but never good. We'll see how long he can hold on." The couple engaged in a heated argument. Well, they were free to argue if they wished. Xiao Yunduan had no intention of intervening in his parents' dispute. He held Xiao Xian's hand and said, "Let's go." Xiao Xian smiled, and they returned to their own courtyard. "Do you think your cousin is acting strangely?" Chapter 806, Xiao Lulang's experience. Things seem strange because there's something wrong. I don't know what he's planning, but I feel that he still holds a strong hostility towards you, me, and our family. Xiao Xian agreed, nodding. Yeah, that is true. I think you are right. I find him looking really strange, as if he had been stimulated. Stimulated? Xiao Yunduan was perplexed, although he shared Xiao Xian's sentiment. What could have possibly triggered such stimulation? If it was because of the provincial champion title he had earned. But that was a long time ago. B0XO. What else could have gone wrong? The departure of the Zhao family wasn't considered a factor by either of them. Moreover, Xiao Lulang and the Zhao family weren't particularly close. Unaware of Xiao Lulang's misunderstanding of Zhao Ming's intentions, the couple assumed that Xiao Lulang resented them for their involvement in his relationship with Zhao Ming. Let's not dwell on it, Xiao Yunduan said. As long as he keeps his distance from our family, we'll leave him be. If he ever dares to harm us again, I'll make sure he regrets it. Xiao Xian felt a sense of relief upon hearing those words and chuckled. That's true. I doubt he would dare to do anything to us with you around. With that, the couple put an end to their discussion. A few days later, Officer Qiao extended an invitation to Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan to visit the mansion once again. The couple readily agreed. They had plans to purchase land from the land agent, and also visit the Zhang village to dig up some lotus roots and catch some crabs. The pond in the village contained a different kind of crab compared to the small ones found in the river. These crabs were specially bred and known for their tender flesh. The crabs could be prepared in various ways such as steamed, fried, or used in dishes like tofu stew and steamed buns. All of them were expected to be incredibly delicious. This time, Qiao Wei, concubine Du, and Xiao Ko were absent. However, Madame Qiao maintained her pleasant and friendly demeanor, wearing a pleasant smile. On the other hand, Officer Qiao seemed less pleased. Madame Qiao was worried that Xiao Xian might reveal what happened at Lingyuan Temple out of anger, so she coughed and redirected the conversation. Xian, we invited you here to discuss the matter of lipsticks. You are the one who makes them, right? Madame Qiao was being straightforward about the lipsticks. It was not a secret anymore since Ms. Mi Jr. had informed her about it. She had every right to bring it up for discussion. What Madame Qiao was unaware of was that Ms. Mi Jr. had not obtained any evidence. Xiao Xian was certain about this, although there wasn't much evidence to begin with. But none of that mattered to Xiao Xian. Whether or not Madame Qiao knew about it was inconsequential. It was better to address it now rather than later, after Xiao Yunduan had left for the capital examination, when things could have gotten worse. Upon hearing this, Officer Qiao interjected. You've been making lipsticks since last year, right? Why didn't you inform us about it? Were you planning to keep it hidden from us forever if your mother hadn't found out? If you had told us, I would have arranged for someone to promote this business and increase the production volume. Madame Qiao spoke gently. Don't be angry, old master. We are also at fault for not asking them about it. If we had inquired, we would have known about it earlier. But it's never too late now, is it? Madame Qiao sneered. She knew how to manipulate her husband with his personality. He wouldn't let go of such a lucrative opportunity. She didn't need to do anything except sit back and watch the drama unfold. Qiao Xian replied, "Father, what you don't know is that young Master Yuezhing entered into a deal with us because he trusted my husband. And it was my sister-in-law who discovered the formula, so young Master Yuezhing has been working closely with us. He even hired people to improve the formula." Chapter 807. Not lying. He is a sincere person and didn't deceive us or keep everything to himself. Qiao Xian explained. The limited production volume is due to the scarcity of raw materials. Young Master Yuezhing doesn't want the source to be revealed, so he has kept it concealed and asked us to do the same. We signed a contract with strict penalties for any breach. That's why we are cautious about spreading the information. Now we have a significant volume of lipsticks, but we can't openly disclose it. Mother, I'm curious, how did you find out about this? County Magistrate Qiao was skeptical. Are you telling the truth? Xiao Yunduan nodded in agreement. Yes. B0XO. He would deal with the lies once they returned home. He was frustrated with his father-in-law. He always complained about not sharing things that brought profits, but if they had done so, they would have risked losing everything. County Magistrate Qiao hesitated. Qiao Xian seemed resolute, so he didn't think she was lying. Madame Qiao clenched her teeth in anger. She didn't believe a word that Qiao Xian said. Ms. Mi Jr. wouldn't have lied to her. She was certain that Ms. Mi Jr. must have told the truth about the source of the lipsticks. She had also observed how the first madam had defended Qiao Xian, although she was perplexed about the reason behind it. However, she was confident that even if Qiao Xian had lied to the old master, the Yuezhing family would assist her in maintaining the deception. She couldn't reveal the truth, even though she was aware of what was truly happening. If Qiao Xian had formed an alliance with the Yuezhing family against the old master, it would mean that she had a stronger bond with someone outside the family than with her own father. The old master would not tolerate such a situation, and would surely reprimand her for her absurdity. But all of this was because she lacked evidence. Lipsticks are incredibly popular right now, and if you possess the instructions... Mother, Qiao Xian interrupted with a smile. The Xiao family sold the instructions to young Master Yuezhing in exchange for money. Otherwise, how do you think we could afford to build a new house with glazed windows? You know very well the value of those windows. The couple. Officer Qiao's anger grew. Why didn't you inform us about this earlier? Indeed, Madame Qiao sighed. But we discovered this and invited you here to share the story. If we hadn't asked, we wouldn't have known anything. Xian, what else have you kept hidden from the old master? He is your father. Officer Qiao snorted in frustration. Those who had lost the enticing prospect of becoming wealthy would naturally become furious, especially in the case of the Qiao family. They had missed the opportunity to obtain the instructions now that they belonged to the Yuezhing family. Xiao Yunduan interjected. Mother-in-law, you are mistaken about my wife. She doesn't conceal secrets. Qiao Xian has always been cautious and meticulous, never revealing anything that shouldn't be disclosed unless asked. Officer Qiao glanced at Madame Qiao knowingly. He understood all too well what had made Qiao Xian become such a cautious and guarded person. Madame Qiao found herself at a loss for words, growing increasingly irritated. She sneered and retorted. So it's always your word against mine. I don't need the instructions, but we need the lipsticks as gifts for our acquaintances in the capital. Can you produce them? She added with a tone of superiority. Of course we are willing to pay for them. Chapter 808. Grudge. Qiao Xian inwardly seethed. Of course you expect them for free? How shameless. Qiao Xian was well aware that Madame Qiao had no intention of paying for the goods. She was attempting to take advantage of being Qiao Xian's parents, expecting free items. But if she refused to provide anything in return, what options did they have? Steal from her? Officer Qiao chimed in. These are exquisite and sought-after items. The noble ladies in the capital are knowledgeable and eager for something new. Giving us 300 or 500 units for New Year presents delivered to the capital is nothing, right? Xian's son-in-law, it's just a gift. You can surely produce them, can't you? Officer Qiao always found ways to justify Qiao Xian and Xiao Yinduan, trying to help them escape from difficult situations. However, there was a limit to his patience. B0XO. He had also heard that the lipsticks were incredibly popular among the ladies in the province, and even noble and wealthy women were craving them. So if they could use them as gifts for their trip to the capital, it would be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it? Oh yes, he suddenly recalled something and added. Young Master Yuezheng also has some limited editions, right? Get me 2 sets. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yinduan. Father-in-law, I apologize if it seemed like I was intentionally provoking you. However, the limited versions of the lipsticks have already been reserved by noble ladies. The remaining ones are ordinary ones, and we don't have the authority to sell them. Everything regarding the distribution and contracts is managed by Brother Yuezheng. Xiao Xian smiled, observing her father's pale face. My husband is correct. The Yuezheng family is a prominent business family, and they ensure there are no loopholes for unauthorized access. While we maintain a good relationship with them, we maintain a clear distinction between personal matters and business affairs. Officer Qiao couldn't contain his anger any longer. How dare you, he snapped. You're purposely trying to provoke me. What if I insist on obtaining them no matter what? I'm sorry, father-in-law, but I can't provide them for you. It's already quite cold, and the lipstick production is not suitable during this season. Besides, there won't be many available in any case. Officer Qiao was fuming. Madame Qiao chimed in, fueling the conversation in a seemingly gentle manner. Old master, please don't be angry. Xian and our son-in-law are honest individuals who uphold their promises. Officer Qiao's anger intensified. But I am their father and father-in-law. Am I inferior to an outsider? Xian, apologize to your father. You are father and daughter, and we can discuss everything together. Madame Qiao urged, trying to mediate the situation. Madame Qiao turned to Qiao Xian. Officer Qiao sneered. Discussing everything? Bah. Since when would a father need to discuss anything? A daughter should always obey her father's words, or she was considered unruly. Qiao Xian remained composed, unaffected by her father's anger. Whether the couple was putting on a show or genuinely expressing their stance, it didn't matter to her. She simply didn't care. She wished her father would become so angry that he would disown her. She felt that she had nothing to lose and was not afraid of any consequences. Xiao Xian responded firmly. We have already explained the situation to you. We cannot keep any lipsticks, and the few we have are reserved for our immediate family members. It would be completely unfair for us to do otherwise, and we will never engage in such actions. Officer Qiao's anger reached its peak. Fine girl. You still hold a grudge against us, don't you? Chapter 809. Zhao Xian's accusation, or she could simply approach Yuezheng Xiao and ask for his agreement. She knew he would undoubtedly support her. In reality, she was merely making excuses to push her father away. She wasn't a dutiful daughter. How dare she behave this way? Officer Qiao was consumed by anger. B0XO. Qiao Xian remained silent. So did Xiao Yinduan. Indeed, she harbored resentment towards her father. So what? Wasn't she entitled to feel that way? Officer Qiao was both taken aback and infuriated. You truly are an ungrateful daughter. I'll apologize, father. Mother never taught me how to be a filial daughter, so I have no understanding of it. You should comprehend that, shouldn't you? Qiao Xian, what are you saying? Madame Qiao was seething with rage and embarrassment. Qiao Xian looked up, her expression cold, as she addressed her. You know perfectly well what I'm referring to. Mother once said that my mother seduced you, father, and how fortunate it was that she died young. Otherwise, Mother would have made sure she suffered until her dying breath. You suggested that I should bear the suffering that was intended for my own mother. Enough. Silence. Madame Qiao snapped back, her voice filled with anger. You're lying. If it weren't for my generosity, You wouldn't have enjoyed a comfortable upbringing. You are nothing but a concubine's daughter. So you admit it. You did say that I should suffer and not be allowed an easy death. Why don't you own up to your words? My maids served you faithfully and never heeded my requests. I had to do everything myself. No one assisted me with bathing water. I was given tasteless and inferior food, worse than what was given to the maids and aunts. I was served cold and spoiled dishes in both winter and summer, and I was never provided with proper clothing. Whenever you were displeased with me, you and Xiao Wei took out your frustrations on me. Nonsense. Madame Qiao's voice grew hoarse. These are outrageous claims. Where is the evidence? Or are you simply fabricating lies? You will be punished for spreading falsehoods about your biological mother. Qiao Xian sneered. Evidence? Mother, you are the mistress of the Qiao mansion. Which evidence and which auntie would dare to step forward and defend me? It's a rather astute question you're posing. That's enough. Officer Qiao's realization hit him hard. He knew that Qiao Xian had been living a miserable life under their roof, but she was just a timid and insignificant concubine's daughter. Her presence had no bearing on their lives, so he had chosen to ignore her completely, thinking it wouldn't do them any harm. He couldn't possibly jeopardize his marriage for the sake of a concubine's daughter, could he? But he never expected that his legal wife had subjected his concubine's daughter to such torment, resulting in her deep-seated resentment towards them. Yet, despite the shock and fury he felt, he found himself blaming his concubine's daughter more than anything else. How foolish she was. She could have confided in him about her grievances. Instead, she kept everything bottled up, only to plan her revenge. And why bring up all of this now, right in front of his son-in-law? In this moment, he still felt compelled to defend his legal wife. Her reputation was intertwined with his own, after all. Girl, your mother couldn't have been such a malicious woman. There must have been some misunderstanding between you. The maids and the aunties must have acted on their accord. But your mother and I failed to consider that without your mother's presence, you would become a target for bullying. It was our fault. But it's also your fault too. You should have confided in us, and your mother and I would have stood up for you. Chapter 8:10, Lying Furious. Qiao Xian couldn't believe how shameless and unreasonable her parents were becoming. They were twisting the truth and trying to appear reasonable even though they were clearly in the wrong. Xiao Yunduan was both surprised and enraged. He never expected that Qiao Xian had endured such a terrible life before they got married. The thought of his beloved wife being bullied and humiliated without the means to fight back broke his heart. Officer father-in-law, Xiao Yunduan said with a cold tone. My wife was subjected to bullying and humiliation, and yet you still blame her for it? If you had truly cared for her, you would have known everything that she went through. Or perhaps you did know, but you allowed it to happen. Servants follow the orders of their masters and mistresses. If you had truly defended my wife, those maids and aunties would never have dared to mistreat her. Or are you suggesting that they had more authority than you in your own household? My wife couldn't have dared to speak up when no one was on her side. She wouldn't have survived until now. B0XO. Calm, officer father-in-law. Why are you trying to deceive yourself? Officer Qiao gasped, his eyes widening in realization. He had so much to say in response to Xiao Yunduan, but Xiao Yunduan's composed demeanor made him feel overwhelming guilt. He could have continued deceiving himself, but he couldn't convince those who saw through his actions with clarity. What right did he have to argue back? Furious and filled with regret, Madame Qiao glared at Qiao Xian. What had compelled her to arrange Qiao Xian's marriage in the first place? She should have eliminated Qiao Xian, so no one would ever bother her again. Girl, you are utterly heartless. I am your lineal mother. Yes, I have made mistakes, but you have turned out fine, haven't you? You can't just cast me aside. As a daughter, it is your duty to respect and assist your parents. It's only reasonable. You can't deny this. Even the emperor emphasizes filial piety, as do scholars. Those lacking filial virtue will never achieve any significant position. Agreeing with his wife, Officer Qiao nodded fervently. Absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Madame Qiao sneered and continued, Furthermore, if it weren't for me, you would have never married Xiao Yunduan. You were initially betrothed to County Magistrate Yang Jiandong in Lin County, before the marriage arrangement with Xiao Yunduan came about. If you had married him, you wouldn't be standing here today. Madame Qiao attempted to use the truth as a weapon to provoke disgust in them. Qiao Xian had never met her former fiancé, but there was indeed a man to whom she had been promised. Xiao Yunduan couldn't help but feel a pang of distress upon hearing this revelation. After all, Qiao Xian had been coerced into marrying him, while the other man held the esteemed position of county magistrate and had achieved a high rank in the imperial examination, ranking third. The disparity in their social status was considerable. Naturally, people would assume that Qiao Xian wasn't particularly pleased about having her engagement forcefully broken and being compelled to marry someone else. Any man in Xiao Yunduan's position would feel somewhat displeased with this history. However, what Madame Qiao was unaware of was that Qiao Xian not only harbored reluctance towards her current husband, but had even attempted to take her own life in the bridal chamber. Although this tragic event stemmed from the experiences of the original host, the present Qiao Xian had to bear the consequences nonetheless. Chapter 8:11. Helping Kao Xian and Xiao Xian was concerned that this revelation would make Xiao Yunduan uncomfortable. Therefore, when Xiao Xian confronted Madame Qiao, she deliberately omitted mentioning the previous marriage alliance or Madame Qiao's attempt to have her killed, which Xiao Yunduan had bravely foiled. However, to Xiao Xian's astonishment, Madame Qiao brought up the topic in a distasteful manner. Xiao Xian inwardly cursed her, considering her a despicable woman. She was about to respond when Xiao Yunduan interjected. My wife chose to marry me because it was our destiny to be together. We were meant to be together, and I consider myself fortunate to have her. Our family is blessed to have her. B0XO. Calm. I was nothing more than a low-ranking cultivated talent, while my wife's previous fiancé held the esteemed position of county magistrate. There was a significant disparity between us. Madame Qiao, did you truly marry off my wife to me for her own benefit? Madame Qiao's eyes were widened. She had a plethora of schemes running through her mind, but she was left dumbfounded by this question. Could Xiao Yunduan be so foolish as to degrade himself just to defend Xiao Xian? Xiao Xian was deeply touched. She looked at Xiao Yunduan with overwhelming emotions, and he responded with a gentle smile, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Internally, Xiao Xian was screaming with delight. She fought the urge to throw herself into his arms right then and there. Her husband was incredibly kind. He was standing up for her and making her feel immensely proud. She longed to flaunt this to the despicable couple before her. Xiao Xian felt that if she could boast in that moment, she would look down on the couple with her chin held high in the sky. County Magistrate Qiao was also taken aback by Madame Qiao's mention of this embarrassing incident. Feeling displeased, he coughed and calmly interjected. We need not discuss this matter right now. He aimed to win Xiao Yunduan over to his side, so he genuinely didn't want to delve into the topic of Xiao Xian's previous engagement. Xiao Xian chimed in. Why not? Madame Qiao started it. My husband is absolutely right. We are destined to be together, according to the will of heaven. Madame Qiao, you have no part in this. Or, why did my husband happen to rescue me when I was pushed into the water and on the verge of death? She saw no reason to evade the truth when her husband was fine with it. What? Both Xiao Yunduan and County Magistrate Qiao's faces changed simultaneously. Evidently, neither of them had prior knowledge of this incident. Madame Qiao was taken aback. She retorted, Stop talking nonsense. Nonsense? I wasn't a mere child. Why would I suddenly fall into the water? I know very well whether I was pushed or not. Moreover, I never explicitly accused Madame Qiao of being involved. Why are you getting so defensive now? Madame Qiao stuttered. I just find it utterly ridiculous. But you're insinuating that it was me, aren't you? But it seems like you're making a confession. Xiao Yunduan's anger and heartache grew stronger. He sneered. Officer father-in-law, do you really think my wife would falsely confess to something like this? County Magistrate Xiao forced himself to respond. Wasn't it just an accident? Perhaps Xian is mistaken. Ignoring his weak answer, Xiao Yunduan pressed on. Let me take a guess. During that time, my wife's previous fiancé and his family came to discuss the marriage. Someone didn't want her to marry into a respectable family, so they orchestrated an incident like this. Isn't that right? No, that's impossible. County Magistrate Xiao stuttered. Realizing that his own denial was feeble, Xiao Yunduan was correct. The Yang family had indeed come to discuss the wedding at that time. Chapter 8:12. Not part of the Qiao family, but Qiao Xian's innocence had been tarnished due to her connection with the man who rescued her from the water. County Magistrate Qiao grew furious and blamed Qiao Xian for bringing trouble to the family. As he reflected on the situation, even County Magistrate Qiao couldn't shake the feeling that it all seemed too coincidental. He even began to suspect that his wife might have been involved in orchestrating these events. Furious, County Magistrate Qiao shot a cold glare at Madame Qiao. Qiao Xian spoke calmly. Madame Qiao accuses me of being unfilial. But I would like to ask, what have I done to deserve such a label? Did one break any contracts? Did I steal from my in-laws' family to benefit my own family? County Magistrate Qiao and Madame Qiao were both taken aback by her words. Indeed, their actions had been forcing Qiao Xian to steal from her in-laws' family to help her own. Qiao Xian had been unwilling to comply, and she could not be considered unfilial. B0XO. Calm. The realization struck them both. It was Xiao Yunduan who stood before them, witnessing everything. Forcing Qiao Xian to engage in such behavior right in front of her husband suddenly seemed incredibly wrong. Qiao Xian felt a strong sense of displeasure. She was a married daughter, spending time with her in-laws' family. As long as she didn't disrespect or mistreat County Magistrate Qiao and his wife, she should never be labeled as unfilial. After all, Qiao Xian, as a married daughter, was not bound by the fate of her family's exile and imprisonment. She was no longer a member of the Qiao family, and the notion of manipulating her with the concept of filial piety seemed absurd. Xiao Yunduan sneered with disdain, firmly holding Qiao Xian's hand. Darling, let's go. Officer father-in-law, unless you provide a clear explanation of the injustice my wife has endured, we will not attend any further summons from you. Qiao Xian chimed in. Father, be cautious of your wife. She is capable of deceit and treachery. With those words, the couple departed, arm in arm. Madame Qiao and County Magistrate Qiao were left in a state of shock, unable to utter a word. Suddenly, a loud bang broke the silence, jolting Madame Qiao from her daze. County Magistrate Qiao glared at her coldly, his voice filled with accusation. Is what she said true? But he couldn't bring himself to utter the words. His legal wife had attempted to harm his daughter. Regardless of her status as a concubine's daughter, she was still his daughter. No, old master, please. Madame Qiao pleaded, sounding as if she had been unjustly accused. Qiao Xian set me up. She was trying to sow discord between us. Old master, don't fall for her ploy. She's trying to divert your attention from our demands. County Magistrate Qiao was caught in a whirlwind of confusion. He couldn't help but find his legal wife's words somewhat reasonable. Qiao Xian's accusation seemed like a diversion to avoid discussing their demands. But you must be aware of how you have treated her. Madame Qiao wiped away her tears. Old master, she is merely the daughter of a concubine, a product of the woman who betrayed me by sleeping with you. Old master, one too have emotions. How could I ever develop any fondness for her after what happened? But I have never mistreated her. I provided her with food, clothing, and daily necessities. While she might not have felt particularly well treated, the truth is, if I truly harbored such hatred towards her, I would have put an end to her existence long ago. As for how she ended up in the water, Chapter 8:13. Xiao Yunduan's attitude. She's lying. One have never done anything of the sort. Madame Qiao vehemently denied the accusations. While she could acknowledge that a lineal mother might not hold affection for a concubine's daughter, She refused to accept responsibility for any attempt on Xiao Xian's life. County Magistrate Xiao found himself growing increasingly perplexed by his wife's words. He sensed that she was not lying, but Xiao Xian appeared resolute in her claims. He found himself torn between whom to believe. However, his growing aversion towards his wife was becoming undeniable. "Old master, I understand that I cannot alleviate your suspicions, and one won't defend myself any further. But Xiao Xian firmly believes that I have done this to her, and she will harbor resentment. She won't show us any respect, including you. She might even grow to hate you." Updated on B0x0VL. County Magistrate Xiao's expression stiffened. He had no interest in her demeanor. He needed Xiao Yunduan's stance. And Xiao Yunduan had already made his position clear. County Magistrate Xiao couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. "It's all your fault." Madame Xiao lowered her head, concealing her inner sneer. She was well aware of the deep grudge Xiao Xian held against her. She had always believed that Xiao Xian was easily manipulated, and she had been confident in her ability to control her. Madame Xiao's anger grew as she realized that Xiao Xian had been deceiving her all along, putting up a facade. She felt a deep sense of betrayal, and vowed to view Xiao Xian as her enemy from now on. "Old master, it seems that Xian has developed a deep-seated misunderstanding of me, and it will be difficult to dispel it. However, if Xiao Yunduan continues to rise in his career..." County Magistrate Xiao let out an angry snort. His head throbbed with pain. Xiao Yunduan had achieved the title of provincial champion, and it was not something that could be easily revoked. Attempting to remove his title could potentially ruin County Magistrate Xiao's own career. He dared not take such a risk. "I am his father-in-law. He wouldn't dare defy me unless he wants to jeopardize his own career. But he won't take your side ever. That's your fault. I have an idea. Would you like to hear it? Spill it out now." "Old master, what if we find a stunningly beautiful, talented, and charming young woman and present her to Xiao Yunduan as a gift? Xiao Xian shouldn't be the only one standing by Xiao Yunduan's side. If they could have a spy working for them, close to Xiao Yunduan, it would be a great advantage." Though it was despicable to manipulate someone to steal their own daughter's husband, the couple seemed to have no qualms about it. Officer Qiao was somewhat convinced. "Where can we find such a person?" "I can tell that Xiao Yunduan is not attracted to ordinary women. If they could find a girl who possessed both gentleness and beauty, along with talent, scholars like Xiao Yunduan would find it hard to resist such charms." People in power often sought to have beautiful women by their side to enhance their image and status. Madame Qiao smirked. "If you trust me, I can take care of that." Officer Qiao had no other choice but to rely on her. He gave a cautious glance to Madame Qiao and whispered, "Keep this a secret. No one, including Wei and concubine Du, should be aware of our plans." Chapter 8:14. Trap again, of course, old master. Please don't worry. He didn't consider it to be his fault. This stubborn girl had left him with no choice but to devise this plan. Fortunately, the girl wouldn't be adversely affected since her only task was to confront a concubine. Once she realized her mistake and turned to him, begging for forgiveness, he could then step forward and assume the role of her father. County Magistrate Qiao found solace in this thought, feeling slightly relieved. Updated on B0x0VL. He simply couldn't bear to give up on a promising son-in-law like Xiao Yunduan, even if it meant causing his daughter some trouble. County Magistrate Qiao's determination was unwavering, so he turned to Madame Qiao and inquired, "Where do you propose we find a girl suitable for this task?" Madame Qiao smiled, responding, "It won't be difficult. With sufficient funds, we can easily find someone suitable. There should be eligible candidates within the province, and I can arrange for a girl to be transferred from elsewhere if necessary." That increased County Magistrate Qiao's confidence even further. He nodded firmly in agreement. Good. They had ample funds for this. Madame Qiao wasted no time in formulating the plan. She intended to seek assistance from Ms. Mi Jr., certain that she would be willing to help. Second, Mrs. Yuezheng possessed the means to make it happen effortlessly. She would even attempt to persuade Ms. Mi Jr. to avoid shouldering any expenses herself. However, second Mrs. Yuezheng decided not to disclose this to her old master, as she could secure a portion of money from him as her personal savings. As they left the mansion, Xiao Yunduan called out to his wife, his face filled with sadness. Xiao Xian's heart warmed, and she gently placed her fingers on his lips, smiling. "Darling, please don't make me out to be so pitiful. I don't want to hear any of that. It's all in the past." Furthermore, she hadn't suffered any harm. It was the original host who had endured it all, and she didn't deserve their sympathy. Xiao Yunduan smiled, appreciating his wife's open-mindedness. "Okay, let's not dwell on it," he nodded, speaking softly. "It's all behind us now, and it will never happen again." "Yes, unless you treat me the same way," she teased playfully. "Don't. I promise I won't treat you like that," Xiao Yunduan interjected, gently covering her lips with his fingers. "Oh, I will only treat you well." Xiao Xian gazed up at her husband, noticing the slight redness in his ears, a sign of his guilt. He avoided her gaze, pretending everything was normal. A bright smile graced Xiao Xian's face. "One know you're the best." Xiao Yunduan responded softly, his cheeks flushing with a thin layer of redness. His handsome face revealed his touched emotions. As the sound of joyful laughter reached Xiao Yunduan's ears, he felt a tinge of shyness. His wife's laughter indicated that she genuinely didn't mind what had happened before. "Are you heading to the land agent?" Xiao Xian asked. "Of course," Xiao Yunduan replied. Nothing would deter them, not even Officer Qiao and his wife. "Let's go then." Together, the couple made their way to the land agent, clearly communicating their requirements. The land agent assured them confidently that he would ensure a smooth process. They instructed him to visit the village in 3 days' time. Only foolish individuals would pass up the opportunity to work for a generous provincial champion. Afterward, the couple paid a visit to Manager Qin at Mingrentang and engaged in a brief conversation. They requested that Manager Qin gather the ripe medicinal herbs the following afternoon, and Manager Qin agreed to their request. Chapter 8:15. Going home, Manager Qin inspected the ginseng and was impressed by their high quality. He also noticed some Panax Noto ginseng, which should be harvested next year. The potential earnings from these herbs amounted to approximately 10,000 liang. Manager Qin attempted to persuade them to expand their operation, and Xiao Xian agreed in principle. However, they faced a challenge as they lacked additional staff to facilitate such an expansion. Furthermore, their plans to visit the capital in spring caused them to hesitate in scaling up their business. Manager Qin found this situation quite regrettable. After bidding farewell to Manager Qin, they proceeded to purchase meat. Xiao Xian intended to cook dinner in the evening. Updated on B0X and 0VL. They wanted to have a small celebration following their encounter with Officer Qiao. It called for a special occasion. Fortunately, they managed to acquire beef. Beef was both expensive and rare in the market, making it a highly sought-after meat. Several restaurants had already purchased half of the stock, but Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan were fortunate enough to arrive early at the stall. Otherwise, they would have been left with nothing. Since beef could be stored for a few days without spoiling, Xiao Shisan bought over 15 kilograms of meat, including sirloin, brisket, tendon, and breast. "We have various spices at home. The tendon meat can be used for stew. The beef brisket and breast can be braised in brown sauce or stewed with radishes and tomatoes. And the sirloin can be enjoyed in a hot pot or stir-fried. Let's have a beef hot pot tonight. And why not make some beef balls as well?" They decided to proceed to thinly slice the beef, preparing it for the hot pot by blanching it in a spicy or clear soup for a few seconds. The result would be tender and flavorful meat that would make anyone's mouth water. As for the beef balls, they had a delightful bouncy texture with a smooth consistency. These chewy delicacies were perfect for the hot pot, adding to the anticipation of the meal. The mere thought of the flavorsome feast caused their mouths to water with anticipation. Xiao Yunduan wholeheartedly agreed with Xiao Xian's excited suggestion, as they hadn't enjoyed hot pot in a while, and were truly craving it. They also purchased a few pork bones and a piece of plum blossom meat. The pork bones were boiled to create a flavorful soup base for the hot pot. They chopped the plum blossom meat, mixed it with lotus root paste, shaped it into lotus root balls, fried them in a pan, and planned to serve them alongside the hot pot. Considering their dinner plans, they decided to postpone their visit to Zhang village. They could make the trip in a few days' time. Back at home, Yang Xiaoni, Xiao Sanlang, Tao Tao, and Qi were all thrilled to hear about the hot pot dinner. They eagerly got busy with preparations, adding to the excitement and anticipation in the household. Preparing the beef balls required beating the beef into a meat paste, a task that demanded arm strength and endurance. Although they had done it before, this time it was Qi's responsibility. Interestingly, Xiao Sanlang volunteered to take on the task, assuming he could handle the physical demands. However, he quickly grew exhausted, unable to lift his arms. Qi couldn't help but laugh at his brother's predicament and effortlessly completed the job, surprising everyone present. Poor Xiao Sanlang, he even trembled as he tried to pick up food with his chopsticks during dinner. He didn't make any further offers to help, unable to tolerate his shivering arms while attempting to eat. The hot pot dinner featured a wide array of dishes. There were beef balls, lotus root balls, fish balls, beef slices, squid, shrimp paste, egg dumplings, vermicelli, yuba, fried bean curd, shiitake mushrooms, lettuce slices, winter melon slices, yam slices, lettuce, wolfberry sprouts, and more. Additionally, they had fresh fire dragon fruits, oranges, and grapes. The tender and delicious beef brought immense joy as they savored this rare and delightful dinner together. Chapter 8:16. Compensation. The following day, with the assistance of Chunyu and the maids, the plant harvesting was swiftly completed within half a day. In the afternoon, Manager Qin personally arrived to collect the medicinal materials. As he didn't have sufficient cash on hand, he had to arrange for the funds from the province. To acknowledge his debt, he wrote an IOU note for Xiaoxian. Xiaoxian happily accepted the note, showing no concern over the matter. This marked Manager Qin's first visit to Xiaoxian's garden, and as he walked through, he couldn't help but be astonished and feel a tinge of envy. He couldn't help but praise what he witnessed, noting the abundance of snow fungus, sugarcane, pineapples, papayas, grapes, pears, lemons, pomegranates, and various other fruits. He even emphasized his desire for a few more bergamots, and expressed his anticipation for the upcoming harvest season. Xiaoxian responded cheerfully, feeling a hint of guilt. She realized she had forgotten to share fruits with Manager Qin during her last visit to town. Updated on B0X and 0VL. They had hired 10 individuals to work on opening up the 20 mu of barren land. Each worker received a daily wage of 35 won. Opening up the barren land was no easy task. Firstly, they had to clear away all the weeds, shrubs, and miscellaneous trees that occupied the area. Most importantly, the roots of these trees and shrubs needed to be eradicated, which proved to be a challenging endeavor. The area was thoroughly cleaned before they began the process of opening up the land. Fortunately, it wasn't a busy farming season, so Xiaoxian and her family were content to follow the lead rather than feeling rushed. It became apparent that the initial 20 mu of land was not sufficient for their purposes. The lipstick business couldn't remain a secret, so they decided to increase production, along with the cultivation of cassavas. Xiaoxian estimated that 500 mu would be an appropriate size, as exceeding that would exceed her management capabilities. The additional fields would be connected to the existing floral fields, allowing for better management on a larger scale. With 200 mu already assigned to others, the remaining 500 mu would significantly enrich their land. Xiaoxian sought the company of her mother-in-law and gathered 16 families together to discuss the acquisition of the land, with assistance from the land officer. It was a small-scale meeting regarding land acquisition compensation. The field itself held little monetary value, and the individual harvests would be limited. By working together, they could ensure a more substantial yield. Xiaoxian didn't say much during the meeting, but she expressed her intentions to the villagers. She desired their land and planned to provide them with abundant compensation in return. At present, the market value for 1 mu of good land stood at 4 liang, while hills and steep terrain were priced at 3 liang. Well-opened land in Mu was valued at 5 liang, and excellent land commanded a price of 6 liang. However, the majority of the available lands had already been opened, with only 20 to 30 mu remaining unopened. Therefore, Qiao Xian decided to purchase these lands at the cost of well-opened land, offering 12 liang for 1 mu. The villagers were left astounded by this proposition. What? How much? 12 liang for 1 mu? Did I hear that correctly? No, number 1 also heard it was 12 liang. Is she joking? That's unbelievable. Even well-opened land was not valued this highly. As the confirmation from Qiao Xian resounded through the crowd, the villagers erupted in excitement. Of course, they were more than willing to offer their land. Only foolish individuals would pass up such an opportunity. With 12 liang for 1 mu, they could use the money to purchase unopened land themselves. Chapter 8:17. Money they could invest some effort in digging the land, which wouldn't affect future plantings. Even though the soil would regenerate after 2 or 3 years, resulting in an abundance of weeds and wild plants, it didn't matter much. Clearing out the weeds and unwanted growth would suffice. It was simply a matter of putting in some hard work. After 3 years, the land would be ready for sale. By selling the land, they could earn 8 liang for 1 mu, or 80 liang for 10 mu. Those with 20 liang could potentially earn 100 or even 200 mu of land. This was an incredible opportunity to seize within just 2 or 3 years. Some families grew anxious, eager to sell their land. They didn't want to miss out on the opportunity in case Qiao Xian changed her mind before they had a chance to voice their intentions. Update on Biomicron X0VL. Xiaomicronim. A few astute families inquired. Ms. Fong and Ms. niece-in-law, what are your plans for buying all this land? Are you aiming to make a fortune? The others were equally curious. Yes, what's the plan? Tell us more about it. Qiao Xian smiled warmly. We're buying the land for our livelihood, of course. We don't squander money. Our goal is to connect the lands together for easier management. If any of you want to sell your land, please go ahead. If not, we can also acquire land from elsewhere. Operating them separately won't be a major issue. How we conduct the business is a secret. Even if we were to reveal our plans to you, it wouldn't guarantee your fortune. I'll offer a high price because we are all fellow villagers. It's a form of compensation. There's no need to rush. Take 2 days to think it over, and then give me your decision. But remember, the offer is only valid for 2 days, Qiao Xian emphasized. You can choose to sell now, but once the deal is done, there's no turning back. We don't want any complications that could hinder our project's progress, she cautioned. After Qiao Xian's speech, people started engaging in lively discussions. 7 or 8 families made the deal on the spot, while others mentioned they would discuss it within their own families and provide an answer the following day. Qiao Xian agreed happily to their approach. The families who reached an agreement with Qiao Xian proceeded to write up the contracts, received their payments, and returned home with smiles on their faces. One family, for example, sold 23 mu of land, with 6 of them being unopened. They earned a total of 276 liang. With the ability to purchase 20 mu of unopened land for 80 liang, they could make a pure profit of 200 liang. This significant increase in income would greatly improve their quality of life. The sight of money exchanging hands excited the others, leading 4 more families to sell their land. However, there were still some villagers who remained hesitant. They expressed their intention to make a decision after a few days. Qiao Xian reassured them that it was perfectly fine. After finalizing the deals, Qiao Xian returned home with Ms. Fong, clutching the contracts in her hands. Ms. Fong couldn't help but express her frustration, saying, "Why are they hesitating? It's so annoying and troublesome. We don't engage in deceit, especially when it comes to money. We're buying these fields to make a fortune, something they can't even dream of achieving. And there's nothing they can do about it either." Chapter 8:18. Rights of Choice. Qiao Xian smiled and replied, "Let them take their time to think it over. It's only a couple of days. I'm not one to wait around either. Besides, they wouldn't figure out a better means of making a living anyway. Nis. Fong chuckled and agreed, saying, "That's very true." Deep down, she knew that her daughter-in-law had bought the land to cultivate flowers and trees, keep bees, and continue producing lipsticks. She had no intention of letting others in on her secret. They couldn't possibly replicate the lipstick-making process. It was time for them to stop dreaming. With the earnings from the land sales, they could build a new house and acquire additional fields for storage purposes. Everything would turn out well. What was the use of prying into Xiao Xian's plans for the money? Update on Biomicron X0 VL. Xiaomicron M. Everyone agreed that nothing in the world came for free. Xiao Xian was offering such a high price not because the buyers were fellow villagers, but because there must be a more significant fortune behind her actions. They couldn't afford to miss out on such an opportunity. And they were right. Xiao Xian wasn't simply giving away money. She was genuinely trying to help the villagers, and her flower and lipstick business would easily recoup the investment. She didn't mind spending that much for their benefit. The choice was simple and clear-cut. It was up to each individual to determine whether they found it worthwhile. If they believed they had the means to sell the land at a higher price on their own, and felt confident about their fortune, they were free to do so. They didn't need to concern themselves with what others were doing. Their main objective was to earn money, wasn't it? On the other hand, if they didn't think selling the land would fetch them a substantial sum, they could choose to forego the opportunity. Ultimately, the decision was theirs to make. Those who had their own ideas refrained from prying into the matter with the first group of families. They understood that they wouldn't gain any information from them, so they approached other families instead. They believed that those families might have some knowledge about the situation. However, to their surprise, neither of the other families knew anything about the first group of families purchasing land. They were equally perplexed as to why the land was bought from outsiders rather than within their own families. "No, I must speak with them." Ms. Niu was unable to tolerate the situation, and was ready to confront the first group of families instead of entertaining questions from outsiders. However, Ms. Yen immediately intervened and stopped her. With a smile, she dismissed those who were prying, saying, "Mom, one don't think we need to delve into this matter. They purchased fields that are adjacent to their own. Since our fields are not available, they didn't approach us. That must be the reason why they excluded us." But Ms. Niu was not convinced by this explanation. She added, "I don't care. They bought fields, and that's all there is to it. I'm starting to believe that they deliberately avoided buying our fields." Confused by her mother-in-law's widened eyes, Ms. Yen let out a perplexed sound. "What, Miss?" Niu continued. "Do you think they refused to buy our fields so that they could acquire the ones that are interconnected?" Chapter 819. Reasoning Ms. Yen. "Honestly," Ms. Niu exclaimed, "why do they have to buy connected fields? Can't they just buy separate ones? I must reason with them." Seeing that some families earned hundreds of liang by selling their fields, with some even earning 200 liang, Ms. Niu couldn't help but feel jealous and bitter. "Mom," Ms. Yen inwardly complained and intervened, stopping her. "Mom, the first group of families has their own reasons for buying connected fields, and that's their business. Even if you try to talk to them, they won't change their minds, right? Elder aunt and fifth sister-in-law are both independent-minded individuals. They don't easily alter their decisions. Don't ruin the improved relationship between us." Update on Biomicron X0 VL. Xiaomicron M. It's simply not worth it, is it? Ms. Niu stiffened, contemplating her daughter-in-law's words. She didn't care much about the improved relationship, which didn't concern her as much. However, one thing Ms. Yen said struck a chord in her mind. Ms. Fong and Xiao Xian were both strong-willed individuals who never swayed in their beliefs. Ms. Niu couldn't convince Ms. Fong or out-argue her. It would only lead to her own frustration. Never mind. Ms. Niu suddenly felt annoyed. Let it go. They should be grateful that I'm not causing them any trouble. Ms. Niu still felt a lingering irritation, as if she had lost something significant. Ms. Yan's lips twitched, silently relieved that she had managed to stop her. That was a close call. To appease Ms. Niu, Ms. Yen expressed her respect and admiration, even offering her some of her own savings. This gesture made Ms. Niu beam with delight, thanking Ms. Yen for her profound respect. Ms. Yen couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction upon hearing those words. She had accumulated a substantial amount of private savings, earning dozens of liang each month. Giving a portion of it to her mother-in-law was well within her means. Just as Ms. Niu was being pampered, Ms. Ma arrived. Ms. Ma shared the same idea as Ms. Niu, intending to rally her support and confront the first group of families together. Ms. Yen inwardly cursed. Her third aunt-in-law was truly wicked. She could create a commotion all by herself and then drag her mother-in-law into it. She never did anything beneficial for Ms. Niu either. However, before Ms. Yen could say anything, Ms. Niu declined the offer, refusing to participate. Ms. Niu had just received money from Ms. Yen, and she couldn't directly humiliate her daughter-in-law. Instead, she informed Ms. Ma that she would pass on the opportunity. Ms. Ma was utterly surprised. This amounted to hundreds of liang. She was about to persist in her persuasion when Ms. Yen deflected the conversation, diverting Ms. Ma's attention elsewhere. Annoyed, Ms. Ma cursed at Ms. Yen and branded Ms. Niu as a coward. Fine, she would go and reason with them herself. The outcome was entirely predictable. Returning home, Ms. Ma felt even more irritated. She firmly believed that the first group of families was buying others' fields to avoid sharing profits with them. Xiao Lulang furrowed his brow, expressing disdain. Mom, stop engaging with them. Why bother getting close to the first group of families? Don't worry, Mom, I'll surpass Xiao Yinduan, I guarantee it. Remember, never approach the first group of families again. What? Ms. Ma was about to defend herself, but Xiao Lulang's cold and impatient expression startled her. Okay, Lulang, whatever you say. Chapter 820. Money-making. Xiao Lulang retreated to his room, his impatience dissipating. Ms. Ma let out a sigh of relief. She noticed that her son had become increasingly irritable lately, always wearing a cold expression. She dared not provoke him or defy his words. But she also observed that he seemed more motivated and dedicated than before. Perhaps it was because he had been working so hard that he was too exhausted to maintain a cheerful demeanor. Update on Biomicron X0 VL. Xiaomicron she had advised him not to overwork himself, and to take some time to relax. However, he ignored her and told her to stop nagging. So she refrained from saying anything further. Her only wish was for him to achieve success as a cultivated talent in the future. Visitors frequently approached the first group of families in the Xiao family, offering to sell their fields. Only foolish individuals would reject such a lucrative deal, or hesitate to sell their fields. It was an expedient way to earn money. Who would refuse such an opportunity? Even the neighboring villagers grew curious. Some couldn't help but feel envious that they were unable to sell their own fields. Of course, there were exceptions. 2 families, owning a total of 30 mu, deliberated and ultimately declined to sell their fields. They were convinced that the first group of families in the Xiao family possessed inside information that allowed them to purchase seemingly worthless fields at such a high price. But they viewed the first group as deceitful and self-centered, unwilling to share their knowledge with others. Determined to take a risk, they chose to retain their fields. They believed that they might soon sell them for thousands of liang, earning many times more than they could currently. Not only did they decide not to sell their fields, but they also attempted to convince others to follow suit. They sought to form a united front and pressure the Xiao family into revealing the true value of the fields. However, all the other families unequivocally rejected their proposition. They had no hesitation in doing so. Those families were not in dire need of such a large sum of money, unlike the less fortunate families. To them, earning 100 or 200 liang was already a substantial amount. As for any peculiar or supernatural aspects related to the fields, well, if they could make money from it, it would be attributed to the good fortune and talent of Xiao Yinduan, the provincial champion. If they were able to generate wealth from these circumstances, it would be considered their good luck, and they would deserve it. By selling their fields, they aimed to avoid succumbing to greed. 100 or 200 liang would already bring significant improvements to their families' lives. The villagers who couldn't sell their fields couldn't help but feel envious of those who did. Why sell the fields? Only foolish people would sell. The two foolish families felt irritated upon hearing those remarks. They whispered among themselves, "Let them make their profits. But they will surely regret it. Yes, something must be amiss. Let's hold on to the fields and make our own fortune." The two families made up their minds to retain their fields and follow the Xiao family's example by pursuing the same business venture. Xiao Xian did not pressure them to sell if they didn't want to. After 2 days, even if they changed their minds and wished to sell, she wouldn't purchase their fields. She wasn't desperate for more fields, but she couldn't go back on her word. Xiao Xian made the decision to acquire an additional 520 mu of land to connect with the existing ones, bringing the total to 600 mu. Chapter 8:21. Feeling of disappointment. They could easily bypass the 30 mu of land. Without it, they could purchase several dozen more mu to open up new fields. The land agent swiftly arrived and handled all the necessary arrangements. Xiao Xian wasted no time in hiring 40 workers, and the project commenced promptly. The vast expanse of over 300 mu was a neglected wasteland, overrun with weeds, shrubs, and various trees. The first task at hand was to clear the ground. However, Xiao Xian specifically instructed the workers not to remove the well-preserved large trees scattered throughout the area. These trees added a unique and picturesque touch to the landscape and provided much-needed shade for rest breaks when the workers grew tired. All the land was now connected into a single plot, requiring resegmentation. Some areas needed filling, while others needed excavation and leveling. A network of small roads needed to be crisscrossed, with accompanying ditches along the way. Opted on Biomicron X0 VL. Xiaomicron. It was indeed a monumental undertaking. Fortunately, it was late autumn and early winter, and the crops from the surrounding fields had already been harvested. This spared them the task of clearing away any vegetation, allowing them to focus on working with the natural terrain. Those who had sold their land wasted no time in using their earnings to purchase new plots of land. The newly acquired land was situated a bit farther from the home village, but the satisfaction of having money in their pockets and new land outweighed any inconvenience. The entire family eagerly ventured out to open up the fields, excited about the prospects it held for the coming spring. No one felt left out, as they all had a role to play in this busy endeavor. The two families who had chosen not to sell their fields couldn't help but feel a sense of emptiness in their hearts as they observed the Xiao family and other families enthusiastically exploring new lands. Subconsciously, they began to harbor suspicions that the first section of the Xiao family had some ulterior motive for their fields, perhaps hoping they would come begging to sell. Yet Xiao Xian remained true to her word and did not approach them with any offers or inquiries. This surprised and somewhat irritated them. They resorted to spreading rumors, suggesting that the Xiao family intended to make a fortune from the fields they had purchased, causing those who had bought the land to regret their decision deeply. Whispered conversations and gossip circulated, casting negative shadows on the Xiao family's intentions. Some even shared these tales with Ms. Fang and Xiao Xian. Ms. Fang responded with a scornful sneer, paying no mind to the rumors. Xiao Xian, on the other hand, simply smiled. Those people truly failed to grasp her genuine concern for the well-being of the villagers. It seemed they were adept at creating false narratives and misunderstandings. The majority of the villagers had a clear understanding of the situation. They had received their money by selling their fields to the Xiao family. Meanwhile, the two families who had attempted to imitate the Xiao family's business model were taken aback when they witnessed Xiao Xian cultivating roses, Chinese roses, pomegranates, osmanthus, lemons, and other flowers, along with a small portion dedicated to cassavas. It dawned on them that Xiao Xian was producing ingredients for making lipsticks. This revelation left them in a state of shock because, despite their efforts, they couldn't manage to produce lipsticks themselves. Filled with deep regret, they implored the elderly members of their families to plead with the Xiao family to sell the fields back to them. However, Xiao Xian politely declined their request. She no longer required such a large amount of land for her endeavors. Chapter 822. Popular Qi. Since Xiaoxian no longer needed the fields, it would be unfair to force the buyers to sell them back. This realization left the two families seething with anger, and the two arrogant men in charge became the subject of ridicule and jokes in the village. As the fields underwent development, Xiao Dalong and Ms. Fong would frequently visit and inspect them. Meanwhile, Xiaoxian, Qi, and Tao Tao ventured back into the mountains. Xiaoxian still had plans for the valuable tea seeds that were needed to fill the vacant area in Zhang village. She intended to start cultivating the seeds after the new year, allowing them to be transplanted around March. Recalling the abundance of wild lemons in the mountains, Xiaoxian decided to dig them up, stimulate the roots by breaking the branches, and temporarily cultivate them in the garden. In early spring, they could be transplanted to orchards on the outskirts of the province. The lemons and their juice were essential for enhancing the flavors of the drinks served at the dessert stores. Xiaoxian aimed to have at least 30 or 40 mu of lemon orchards. Update on Biomicron X0VL. Xiaomicron M. Furthermore, this season marked the return of plump wild animals in the mountains, accompanied by a variety of wild fruits. It was the perfect time to venture into the mountains and gather resources. Qi's hunting skills had improved, and he had grown stronger with a sharper sense, leading to a bountiful harvest for their family. Pheasants, hares, deer, muntjac, grouse, and wild pigeons, which Xiaoxian enjoyed, were harvested almost daily. Although it was more convenient to store the meat during this season, there was still an excess that needed to be addressed, prompting the family to resume making smoked meat. During their hunts, they even encountered wild deer, and Qi managed to bring back 3 fully grown deer to the village, causing jealousy among the villagers. Wild boars were also hunted, as their meat was perfect for smoking. In addition to the game from the mountains, Xiaoxian and her family also acquired many large smoked fish. Their stockpile of smoked meat from the previous year had lasted for almost half a year, attesting to its delicious taste. Whether it was steamed, fried, stewed, made into claypot rice, or used as fillings for other dishes, the flavors were exceptional. The anticipation for the next hunting season grew within the family, keeping them busy with preparations. Meanwhile, the villagers couldn't help but feel envious of Qi's hunting abilities, making him quite popular among them. People from their own village, neighboring villages, and even distant areas approached Ms. Fong and eldest uncle, expressing their interest in arranging marriages for Qi. Some individuals were also interested in Tao Tao. Ms. Fong felt a mix of pride and helplessness in response to the attention Qi and Tao Tao received. She cautioned eldest uncle not to make any promises regarding their marriages at this time. Eldest uncle's expression turned serious as he responded, "It's a matter of great importance, and I don't take such promises lightly. We must approach it with caution and thoroughness." Ms. Fong rolled her eyes and scoffed, "I have my doubts. You tend to change your mind too easily, and I wouldn't put it past you to make promises just to save face." Eldest uncle was displeased by her remark. "That's not true. I'm not that foolish." However, he nearly made a mistake soon after. Ms. Fong approached Xiao Yunduan and Xiaoxian, seeking their assistance in arranging marriages for Qi and Tao Tao. The dynamics had shifted. Xiao Yunduan's success and Xiaoxian being county magistrate Xiao's daughter, along with their profitable land purchases, had attracted the attention of many villagers. Chapter 823. Dragon Fruits and Papaya Seeds. So, those who sought to form a martial alliance might have ulterior motives. What if they targeted the wrong individuals and deceived them into making promises? This could potentially bring trouble to Qi and Tao Tao in the future, putting the entire family at risk. Ms. Fong was determined not to let this happen. The family was thriving, and her sons and daughters-in-law were all doing well. The peace and harmony within the family were invaluable. Xiaoxian and Xiao Yunduan wholeheartedly agreed to assist in the matter. "Mom, don't worry. My wife and one will ensure that everything goes smoothly. When it comes to Qi and Tao Tao's marriages, we want focus solely on family background. What truly matters is the character of the individuals," Xiao Yunduan reassured. Ms. Fong smiled and sighed with relief. "You're absolutely right. Just look at your third sister-in-law. Her family may not have been well off, but she has thrived after marrying into our family. That's what truly counts. Qi and Tao Tao don't need partners who are highly successful, but they must be reliable and not cause any trouble. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan felt a hint of embarrassment. Xiao Xian chuckled. Niam, it's not that simple. We can't just settle for anyone for Qi and Tao Tao. We will handle this matter carefully and make sure to find the best matches for them. If someone proposes a marriage now, we will decline. What do you think about waiting until after my husband's spring examination? That way, we'll have enough time to thoroughly evaluate and gather information, suggested Xiao Xian. Ms. Feng was pleased to hear this proposal and nodded in agreement. They shouldn't rush to find suitors now. What if Xiao Yunduan becomes the advanced scholar and starts working in the governmental office? Qi and Tao Tao would have a much broader selection of potential partners then. Chu Shan arrived with a group of people from the province. Yue Xiao's letter informed them that they had obtained many dragon fruits and papaya seeds. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan were invited to visit them and collaborate on this project. Xiao Xian was delighted by the news and made up her mind to visit them. She intended to use her superpower to ensure the safekeeping of the seeds throughout the winter. Concerned for her safety, Xiao Yunduan decided to accompany her on the journey. Xiao Xian carefully selected some distinctive fruits from the garden. Although they no longer had pineapples or sugar canes, she gathered a few bananas, dragon fruits, and papayas. The bergamot trees were thriving, producing large and fragrant fruits. They collected a total of 12 bergamots. 6 of them would go to the Xie family, and the remaining 6 to the Yuezheng family. They also obtained fresh ginseng. Coincidentally, Qi had returned from hunting with 2 roe deer and several pheasants. They decided to bring both roe deer and selected 8 pheasants and 8 hares each. They also packed 4 bottles of homemade mushroom sauce, tomato sauce, sesame oil, red oil pickles, and chili sauce. However, they decided to leave behind the unfinished smoked meat. The wagons were now filled with these provisions. Xiao Xian also successfully saved the silver ink orchids from the Yuezheng family. She placed 2 seeds in her special space and planned to bring the original one to the Xie family. Once everything was arranged, they set off with Chu Shan. As good friends, Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan didn't hide anything from Chu Shan. They openly discussed their concerns. Xiao Xian inquired about the situation with Yuezheng Ting. It was an event that couldn't be concealed. Numerous people had witnessed or heard about it, and no one could erase that memory. Chapter 824. Future Chu Shan was filled with excitement when he was asked about the situation. Instead of merely expressing his excitement, he began to mock and ridicule the second section of the family. The strained relationship between the 2 sections had always been evident, with Ms. Mi Jr. frequently bullying Chu Shan and the servants. Therefore, when the second section of the family encountered trouble, Chu Shan eagerly seized the opportunity to mock them. In light of these circumstances, Chu Shan and the others became more inclined to align themselves with Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan. After Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan left the province, Madame Qiao, her daughter, and concubine Du also departed soon after. Subsequently, rumors about what had transpired involving Yuezheng Ting began to circulate. Although Qiao Wei was involved, very few people discussed it, and numerous versions of the rumors regarding Yuezheng Ting's situation emerged. Soon enough, her reputation plummeted to the lowest point, subjecting her to constant ridicule. Even some troublemakers resorted to creating vulgar jokes at her expense. Yuezheng Ting and Ms. Mi Jr. withdrew from public life for several days, and the servants were well aware of the situation but dared not speak of it to them. The second old master, who had been out, returned home in a fit of anger and confronted Ms. Mi Jr. He lashed out at Yuezheng Ting, blaming Ms. Mi Jr. for her inability to raise their daughter properly. In his rage, he even slapped Yuezheng Ting across the face. The mother and daughter were taken aback and overwhelmed with distress upon learning about the situation. They couldn't comprehend what had transpired and demanded an explanation. The recent events had left a deep scar in Yuezheng Ting's life, resembling a haunting nightmare. The news she heard from her father only intensified her anguish. Overwhelmed by shame, She instantly blushed and sought solace in Ms. Mi Jr.'s comforting embrace, avoiding any contact with others. She couldn't fathom her future anymore. She knew she would never be able to join her friends at their homes or on trips. Those who held grudges against her would surely revel in her misfortune and mock her mercilessly. The weight of her disgrace left her unable to face anyone ever again. Thoughts raced through her mind. What would Brother Xie think of her? Would he believe she was an utterly frivolous girl? No. That couldn't be true. The idea of marrying Xie Jingrong seemed unbearable, as the thought of being looked down upon by him filled her with misery. Ms. Mi Jr. experienced a mix of embarrassment, surprise, and fury, overwhelmed by the situation and its implications. Ms. Mi Jr. reached her breaking point, unable to tolerate the humiliation inflicted upon her by her own husband. Old Master, it must be the elder sister-in-law who orchestrated this scheme. The people from Lingyuan Temple vowed to keep the secret, and our servants are too afraid to speak up. It must be the elder sister-in-law's doing. She wants to humiliate us, to tarnish Ting's reputation. She must have paid people to spread the rumors. Old Master, we implore you to help us. Ting is being bullied and her prospects for marriage are now ruined. Marrying someone? The second Old Master scoffed. Oh, consider us lucky that she isn't engaged. Otherwise, we would have faced even more embarrassment when the engagement fell apart. Ms. Mi Jr. sobbed even harder, expressing her grievances. It has to be the elder sister-in-law's doing. Otherwise, why would the rumor single out Ting and not mention elder Miss Chiao, even though both are involved? It's clear as day. The elder sister-in-law has a close relationship with Qiao Xian, so they shield elder Miss Chiao from scrutiny. Infuriated, the second Old Master found himself believing Ms. Mi Jr.'s reasoning. It seemed logical to him given the circumstances. Chapter 825. Revenge. The couple approached Madame Yuezheng, seeking a fair resolution to their predicament. Upon hearing their plea, Madame Yuezheng was taken aback and nearly fainted. She couldn't believe what she had just witnessed. Overwhelmed with disappointment, she directed her anger towards Ms. Mi, questioning her abilities as a mother. She expressed concerns about Yuezheng Ting's future, and expressed her disappointment in their actions. Ms. Mi Jr., feeling deeply wounded, covered her face and wept. Madame Yuezheng, I am to blame. But please, I beg you to take care of Ting and ensure justice for her. Madame Yuezheng's expression grew stern. She ordered, bring First Madam here. While Ms. Mi Jr. and her daughter might have been mistaken in their accusations, First Madam should not have taken actions to harm them. She was determined not to let that slide. As Madame Yuezheng spoke, she started to grasp the situation unfolding before her. She remained calm even as Ms. Mi Jr. glared at her, and continued to accuse her. With a dark tone, Madame Yuezheng replied, Elder son's wife, your accusations have gone too far. We are all part of the same family. By attempting to set me up, you tarnish our family's reputation. You are mistaken. First Madam responded quietly, Madame Yuezheng, do you have any evidence to support your claim? Accusing me without any grounds is highly improper, isn't it? Ms. Mi Jr. snapped. It's evident. You're seeking revenge on me. If you have a problem with me, come directly to me. Why involve Ting in your schemes? You certainly have a high opinion of yourself. First Madam sneered. She had always been irritated by Ms. Mi Jr.'s habit of complaining about her in front of Madame Yuezheng. With a hushed tone she continued, If I ever wished to take revenge on you, I have countless methods at my disposal. And rest assured, one would ensure that you never discover it was me. As far as First Madam was concerned, her granddaughter was still too young to be concerned about her reputation. Moreover, the first and second sections of the family were distinct entities. Madame Yuezheng, as you have stated, we are all part of the Yuezheng family. While I may not have a daughter, my sons may have daughters in the future. There is no benefit for me in engaging in such actions. Second sister-in-law, you assume I am responsible for all this, but do not make baseless assumptions. Show me the evidence. Otherwise, if you dare accuse me of something I have not done, I will slap you in the face. You dare speak so boldly because you know I have no evidence." Ms. Mi Jr. trembled with anger. First Madam regarded her as if she were staring at a fool. "So, in the end, you have no evidence, yet you dare spout nonsense and accuse me in front of Madame Yuezheng so audaciously?" Ms. Mi Jr. Madame Yuezheng felt a deep annoyance, secretly calling Ms. Mi Jr. a foolish woman. It seemed that Ms. Mi Jr. had easily managed to irritate her, and she imagined that her elder son's wife was likely mocking her inwardly. Feeling embarrassed, Madame Yuezheng furrowed her brow in anger. This was precisely why she had never held a fondness for First Madam. Her daughter-in-law was excessively intimidating and imposing, showing no regard for the feelings of the elders, or attempting to ingratiate herself with them. She could never warm up to a person like that. Before they could inquire further, First Madam calmly began to explain. Many people had witnessed the incident, and Yuezheng Ting had openly revealed everything. Therefore, concealing the incident was impossible. The fact that the news did not spread until several days later was already a stroke of luck. The Yuezheng family was renowned in the province, and any scandal involving a member of the family naturally attracted significant attention. Hence, people reveled in discussing the matter. As for elder Miss Chiao, no one even knew who she was, so there was barely any gossip surrounding her. Chapter 826. Reasonable. The increasing wealth of the Yuezheng family attracted both allies and rivals, creating opportunities for their competitors to ruin their reputation and spread vile jokes about the family. When such gossip was spread, it was clear that there was someone behind it. But what could they do? Rumors were always intangible and omnipresent. Even the immense wealth of the Yuezheng family couldn't suppress them completely. Furthermore, the more explanations were offered, the more amusing it became for outsiders. They would seize upon any opportunity to create even more absurd tales that portrayed the family in a negative light. If they didn't trust Madame Yuezheng's judgment, they could provide explanations, but it wouldn't change the situation. Madame Yuezheng and the others felt a sense of numbness upon hearing these words. It was painfully true. The second old master felt immense shame, and shot a resentful glare at his wife. If it weren't for this woman, he wouldn't find himself in this situation. She had proven herself to be incompetent, limited to playing petty tricks at home. She couldn't even properly educate her own daughter. Ms. Mi Jr. remained infuriated, and had no trust in a single word uttered by First Madam. She firmly believed that First Madam was merely attempting to argue and defend herself. Even if competitors were involved in orchestrating this situation, First Madam had to be implicated as well. First Madam added, "Suggest you publicly portray it as an accident." By labeling it as an accident, they would acknowledge the incident while redirecting the public's focus away from other possibilities. Indeed, most people would believe it was an accident. After all, a woman from the prestigious Yuezheng family could never be involved with unemployed individuals. It must have been Lady Yuezheng who had the misfortune. Nevertheless, her marriage prospects would undoubtedly be affected. True to form, Nis. Mi Jr. hastened to arrange potential marriage alliances for her daughter, hoping to prove that Yuezheng Ting still had promising suitors. However, those whom she had previously favored or disliked turned her down. Ms. Mi Jr. seethed with anger, cursing those individuals as simple-minded fools. First Madam was left speechless upon hearing this from Auntie Hua. The rumor continued to circulate, and Ms. Mi Jr.'s attempts to find a suitor seemed futile. No one would agree to it. She should have waited at least a couple of years before making such efforts. Perhaps, at least half a year later, right? Ms. Mi Jr. was completely oblivious to the concept of haste makes waste. She remained increasingly driven and motivated to push further. This infuriated and worried Madame Yuezheng. She sternly warned Ms. Mi Jr. not to subject herself to further humiliation. Feeling miserable, Ms. Mi Jr. cried. Her daughter was already 18 years old, and if they waited for a few more years, she would have no suitable suitors left. Time was of the essence, and her daughter couldn't afford to wait any longer. Madame Yuezheng's anger intensified. She criticized Ms. Mi Jr. for being irritating and for her failure to plan ahead. As the tearful Nis. Mi Jr. was dismissed. Madame Yuezheng massaged her temples and called for First Madame to discuss a plan. Reluctantly, Madame Yuezheng had to admit that her elder son's wife was more dependable, despite her personal dislike for her. First Madame swiftly offered her suggestion. The best solution would be to bring Yuezheng Ting back to their hometown to find a suitable suitor. Ms. Mi Jr. should not focus on the suitor's family background. Rather, integrity should be the most important factor to consider. Madame Yuezheng was taken aback by the suggestion. After a prolonged silence, she responded tersely, acknowledging that she understood, and then asked First Madame to leave. First Madame showed no objection and left without hesitation. However, Madame Yuezheng soon came to the realization that it was indeed the only way forward. Chapter 827. Back to Hometown U. TED by BXN0VL. Xiaomicron M. Yuezheng Ting was reaching an age where waiting for a suitable suitor was becoming increasingly difficult. The longer they waited, the fewer good prospects there would be available. However, given the scandal that had tarnished Yuezheng Ting's reputation in the province, it seemed impossible to find a suitable suitor for her there. Madame Yuezheng considered the option of looking for a suitor in their hometown, which was located at a considerable distance from the province. The Yuezheng family held a strong position in their hometown, and they could protect Yuezheng Ting when needed. Furthermore, the rumors would not reach that far. While the suitors from their hometown might not have as privileged backgrounds, there was still a chance for Yuezheng Ting to find a suitable partner there. Madame Yuezheng finally made the decision to pursue this path. However, Ms. Mi Jr. fiercely opposed this suggestion when she heard it. No, absolutely not. She refused to let her daughter return to the humble surroundings of their hometown to marry someone there. She believed it would ruin her daughter's life. Madame Yuezheng was furious. She cared for her granddaughter just as much, and was not out to ruin her life. She was not an evil grandmother. Furthermore, Madame Yuezheng blamed Ms. Mi Jr. for failing to properly teach and guide her daughter, leading to the situation they were facing now. Ms. Mi Jr. remained determined and steadfast in her stance, adamantly refusing Madame Yuezheng's suggestion. She had changed, no longer displaying her previous sweetness and pretentiousness. She had a singular focus now. Her daughters must marry someone in the province or even in more affluent regions. They were destined for a prosperous life, not to return to the countryside like their hometown. Their wealth was too great to be given to someone poor. Ms. Mi Jr. disregarded her previous behavior in front of her mother-in-law. The only thing she cared about now was ensuring her daughter would not marry someone beneath her, who would take advantage of her and her wealth. Madame Yuezheng was taken aback by Ms. Mi Jr.'s resolute rejection. She had never expected her beloved daughter-in-law, whom she had adored for so long, to be like this. It was a great shock to her, and she began to feel deeply disappointed. Furious at Ms. Mi Jr.'s refusal and her accusations of favoritism, Madame Yuezheng decided to drop the matter altogether. She was thoroughly disappointed in Ms. Mi Jr. She resolved not to impose any further requests on Yuezheng Ting or her. After all, Yuezheng Ting was not her own daughter, but merely a granddaughter. It seemed that Yuezheng Ting had no interest in returning to their hometown either. From that moment on, Madame Yuezheng decided to change her treatment of Ms. Mi Jr. She no longer treated her with the same kindness and favor as before. Ms. Mi Jr. breathed a sigh of relief and began seeking potential suitors, even considering those from neighboring towns. However, her efforts yielded no positive results. The families interested in marrying Yuezheng Ting did not meet Ms. Mi Jr.'s standards. Just when they believed the situation would continue dragging on for an extended period, an unexpected event occurred, bringing about a turning point. Unfortunately, it was not a favorable turn of events. Yuezheng Ting's sister, Yuezheng Yan, who had been married for a while, caused trouble once again. Yuezheng Yan's husband relied heavily on the Yuezheng family for his business, and their family enjoyed wealth and numerous properties. However, this dependence and Yuezheng Yan's growing arrogance created a rift between her and her husband, driving them further apart. Yuezheng Yan strongly opposed her husband, Qi Yun, having a concubine. Just 2 months into their marriage, she forcefully dismissed the maid who had slept with her husband. Not stopping there, Yue Jingyan replaced the other attractive maids with plain-looking and clumsy ones. She was not concerned about mistreating the maids she had purchased, and she would punish them severely if they dared to cross any boundaries. Qi Yun, Yue Jingyan's husband, struggled with her controlling behavior. Initially, his mother explained that Yue Jingyan's actions stemmed from her care and desire to keep him close. Although Qi Yun did not appreciate it, he reluctantly accepted this explanation. Chapter 828. Yue Jingting's Sister Yu. Ted by BXN0VL. Xiaomicronim Yue Jingyan had become increasingly tyrannical, believing that her husband's family should conform to her every whim and mood. Within just 6 months, she had managed to offend not only her husband's entire family, but also their relatives. Despite their resentment, they dared not confront her due to her status as a member of the influential Yue Jing family. Although Yue Jingyan was arrogant and overbearing, she had not engaged in any cruel or lethal acts, leading her husband's family to tolerate her behavior. However, Qi Yun soon discovered something shocking. Yue Jingyan had arranged marriages for his 2 serving maids with elderly, unattractive widowers from rural areas. She had gone to great lengths to find such matches. As a result, the 2 serving maids were subjected to a wretched existence. When Qi Yun learned of their plight, one of the maids had already succumbed to the relentless torment, while the other had aged prematurely, bearing scars on her forehead and losing all her former beauty. Filled with horror and anguish, Qi Yun immediately brought the surviving maid back home and placed her in a convent for her safety. Determined to uncover the truth, he confronted Yue Jingyan about her actions. Yue Jingyan insisted that she had found 2 excellent suitors for the serving maids and had generously provided them with a substantial sum of money to live a comfortable life. Qi Yun, trusting his legal wife, believed that she had acted in their best interest. Unbeknownst to Qi Yun, Yue Jingyan's intentions were far from noble. She was leading the maids down a path of despair and destruction. However, Yue Jingyan showed no remorse. Instead, she began to create a tumultuous scene, accusing Qi Yun of rekindling his relationship with the maids and questioning his love for her as his legal wife. She cried, shouted, and hurled vulgar insults at Qi Yun, even seeking support from her parents and Madame Yue Jing. Ms. Mi Jr. and Madame Yue Jing, being fond of Yue Jingyan, became incensed upon hearing her side of the story. In the end, Qi Yun was compelled to apologize, bowing down to Yue Jingyan's demands. Yue Jingyan may have obtained her perceived justice, but she had lost the support and respect she once had from Qi Yun's family. Qi Yun eventually made the difficult decision to distance himself from Yue Jingyan. Although she appeared to hold a position of authority within Qi Yun's family, the truth was that no one genuinely liked her or regarded her as a true family member. It was during this time that Yue Jingyan discovered Qi Yun had a mistress who had even given birth to a son and a daughter. Overwhelmed by jealousy and rage, Yue Jingyan assembled a group of her own men and stormed the mistress' residence with the intention of harming her and selling her children. Upon learning of the situation, Qi Yun rushed to the scene to intervene. Unfortunately, the children had already been sold to intermediaries, and his mistress had been subjected to a brutal beating, losing consciousness multiple times. Qi Yun's anger surged within him. He rescued his mistress and instructed his men to protect her while he set off to find and secure the safety of the children. Meanwhile, Yue Jingyan's mental state deteriorated further. She wept uncontrollably and retreated to the solace of her own home. News of the shocking incident spread throughout the province, leaving no doubt that few would tolerate their husbands having mistresses. However, there was no support or sympathy to be found for Yue Jingyan in the aftermath. The mistress' actions were undoubtedly immoral, but taking her life was not the solution. Teaching her a lesson and holding her accountable for her deeds would have been more appropriate. Yue Jingyan's decision to sell her husband's children to an agent instead of bringing them home was truly horrifying and inhumane. Yue Jingyan had never enjoyed a favorable reputation, and her behavior within her husband's family only added fuel to the rumors that circulated about her. She consistently disregarded the authority of the elder family members and imposed her will upon others. Additionally, her failure to bear any children and her blatant disregard for virtuous conduct only furthered her negative image. It was not surprising that her husband might consider leaving her, given the circumstances. Many sighed in resignation, accepting the situation as a natural consequence. When Ms. Mi Jr. heard about the rumors surrounding her daughter, she refused to believe them. Instead, she attributed the spread of such stories to jealousy from individuals who were envious of her daughter's prosperity and well-being. Chapter 829. Ms. Mi Jr. Getting Mental You. TED by BXN0VL. Siamacronem. Prior to Yue Jingting's accident, the process of arranging her marriage was already facing obstacles, primarily due to her sister's behavior. Families who valued propriety and adherence to rules were hesitant to accept a daughter-in-law with such flaws. Only those who prioritized their own material gains were willing to overlook these concerns. The return of Yue Jingyan to the family further enraged Ms. Mi Jr., leading her to curse at the Qi family. She felt that everything was going wrong and blamed the heavens for subjecting her daughters to such hardships. As First Madam and the old master held the authority, Ms. Mi Jr. was not allowed to execute her own plans based on personal interests. Therefore, they took charge and addressed the matter. After years of enduring the situation, Qi Yun's parents and Qi Yun himself came to the Yuezheng family to expose Yue Jingyan's actions in front of Madame Yuezheng, First Madam, Ms. Mi Jr., and her husband. Ultimately, they declared that Qi Yun intended to marry his mistress, and insisted on bringing the children back home. They also prohibited Yue Jingyan from interfering in the matter. If Yue Jingyan objected to these terms, they were willing to grant a divorce. The Qi family would return the dowry, and provide an additional 10,000 liang as compensation. Ms. Mi Jr. was pushed to the brink of a mental breakdown by these developments. Ms. Mi Jr. was furious at the audacity of the Qi family. She believed that the fault lay with her elder brother and elder sister-in-law, as they should have exerted pressure on the Qi family to prevent such behavior. While acknowledging that the Qi family did consider this aspect, the primary decision-makers within the family were known for their fairness in handling family matters. Despite the questionable actions of the Qi family, Yue Jingyan found herself in an even worse predicament. Both Madame Yuezheng and the influential members of the family suggested pursuing a divorce. However, both Ms. Mi Jr. and Yue Jingyan vehemently rejected this proposition. They refused to entertain the idea. Divorce was out of the question for them. Their underlying intention was to withhold any benefits from outsiders. Their determination only served to exacerbate the situation further. Yue Jingyan returned to the Qi family and swore an oath to punish the mistress and her 2 children. However, Mrs. Qi had already taken the grandchildren under her care, and Qi Yun personally selected the servants for the mistress. Consequently, Yue Jingyan's orders had no effect. Yue Jingyan's maids and aunties were on the verge of physically assaulting the concubine when the concubine's servants intervened and reported the incident to Qi Yun. In response, Qi Yun issued severe punishments to the maids and aunties who had assisted Yue Jingyan. No one dared to defend Yue Jingyan anymore. Yue Jingyan created a scene, behaving erratically. As a result, Qi Yun ordered her to be confined to the yard, prohibiting her from leaving its confines. Unbeknownst to Yue Jingyan, once Qi Yun discovered her true nature, he began administering a medicinal soup after their intimate encounters to prevent her from becoming pregnant. Furthermore, Qi Yun developed strong negative feelings toward Yue Jingyan and ceased any further physical intimacy with her. As a result, she remained childless throughout those years. Qi Yun preferred to have no legitimate children rather than allowing Yue Jingyan to bear a child who would carry his bloodline. News of Yue Jingyan's actions spread widely after the commotion at the Qi family. Curiously enough, it was the Qi family themselves who willingly propagated these stories whenever they were asked, demonstrating a surprising openness and lack of concern for their reputation. The entire town was both shocked and captivated by the scandalous gossip surrounding the Qi family. However, due to the tarnished reputation caused by Yue Jingyan's actions, the prospects of finding a suitable suitor for Yue Jingting became extremely slim. Nevertheless, Ms. Mi Jr. remained resolute and unwavering in her determination. She refused to give up and tirelessly continued her search for a suitable match for Yue Jingting. She faced countless rejections and endured the mockery of people whispering behind her back. Madame Yuezheng could no longer bear witnessing Ms. Mi Jr.'s relentless pursuit. With a heavy heart, she confronted Ms. Mi Jr. Either Ms. Mi Jr. keeps Yue Jingting company back to the hometown, so they could arrange a marriage deal, or she can dispatch one old auntie who keeps her company back to the hometown to arrange a marriage deal. Chapter 830, Shocked You. TED by BXN0VL. Siamacronym either of the two options would be given to them. If Nis. Mi Jr. refused to make a choice, she would be presented with the second option. Ms. Mi Jr. appeared completely possessed, displaying a strong resistance to accepting the proposal. Her rebellion provoked Madame Yuezheng to a great extent. In response, the second old master delivered a swift slap across Ms. Mi Jr.'s face, finally silencing her. Reluctant to let Yue Jingting return to her hometown alone, Ms. Mi Jr. decided to accompany her. Madame Yuezheng assigned her trusted auntie and a few female maids to approach the clan leader and select a suitable suitor, disregarding Ms. Mi Jr.'s input due to her consistent disapproval. If a decision couldn't be reached, a letter would be sent to Madame Yuezheng, who planned to teach Ms. Mi Jr. a valuable lesson. Upon discovering Ms. Mi Jr.'s true nature, Madame Yuezheng realized she had been deceived all these years. She lost any desire to defend and protect Ms. Mi Jr. The embarrassment and anger she felt when recalling the situation were overwhelming, as it meant she had foolishly placed her trust in a deceitful daughter-in-law for so long. Regardless of Ms. Mi Jr. and Yue Jingting's thoughts, they were compelled to leave the province discreetly. They had no intention of returning for at least 6 months. The Yuezheng family paid no heed to the rumors circulating in town, and with time, they faded away along with Ms. Mi Jr.'s presence. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan were left in shock upon hearing the story. It became evident that Ms. Mi Jr. was indeed an eccentric individual, and her daughter Yue Jingting was no different. The fact that both the mother and daughter were no longer in the province brought a sense of relief. There was no longer a need to be wary of their presence. Little did anyone know that Xiao Xian was the true instigator behind the events that transpired. However, it should be acknowledged that Yue Jingting had sparked the conflict initially. Xiao Xian's subsequent actions were merely a form of retaliation. It was a matter of tit for tat. Had Xiao Xian not possessed superpowers, she would have been the one facing harm. Yue Jingting would have shown no mercy towards her. Xiao Xian was merely returning the favor in kind. For Yue Jingting, it might have been disheartening to marry in her hometown. However, in the long run, it might not necessarily be a negative outcome for her. Living in the province would have led to her own downfall, similar to what happened to her sister. First, Madame couldn't help but feel a sense of happiness when Nis. Mi Jr. and her daughter disappeared from their sight, and her joy only increased upon receiving Xiao Xian's gift. So first Madame invited Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan to spend the night at the Yuezheng family's residence. Since their stay was short, there were no complications in their journey back home. Yuezheng Xiao also extended the offer for them to stay. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan gladly accepted the invitation. The next day, Xiao Yunduan accompanied Xiao Xian as they planted papayas and dragon fruits. Yuezheng Xiao and Xie Jingrong joined them, eager to witness the process. They were astonished by the appearance of the dragon fruit seeds. Xiao Xian instructed the seeds to be sorted based on their size, as they exhibited various shapes and sizes. Carefully, they were planted in separate patches, ensuring proper spacing. Xiao Xian believed that some preparation could be done with the dragon fruit seeds before they were planted, unlike the papaya seeds that could be directly planted without any additional steps. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.